In the Tour Village this morning, Eric Zabel enjoys a moment with his family. His son Rick, named after top sprinter of the 60s, Rick van Looy. Yesterday, Zabel was inspired by his 25th birthday and showed the sprinters the way home in Charleroi. In fact, he went so quick, the pack containing race leader Ivan Gotti was given a slower time. Gotti lost his single-second lead as the yellow jersey passed to his teammate Bjorn Ries of Denmark. Ries, in red here, finished at the back of the second group, but it was enough to steal the lead by 2 seconds. Gotti is now in second position and Jalabert has moved up to third. Of the favourites, Berzin is 7th and Indurain is 10th. The British riders Max Chiandri and Sean Yates are 27th and 142nd. And the riders rolling away from Charleroi this morning to a great cheer from the Belgians here, and it looks like they're going to face up to a hot sunny day on the road to Liège through the Belgian Ardennes. And the route today is well known by the riders because it goes through many of the little hills used by the Liège-Bastogne-Liège Classic, and there are 10 climbs today, including 4 of third category. Overall, the race is 203 kilometres. Last day too, for the time bonuses on the special sprints along the way. The rider in yellow today, Bjorn Ries, who accepted the yellow jersey almost apologetically from his teammate Ivan Gotti last night. And the first sprint, which came after 40 kilometres, Abdou Japarov gaining more points towards that leader's green jersey when he outsprinted Laurent Jalabert and Neil Stevens. Laurent Jalabert now within 4 seconds of the overall lead of this race again.
Well, the race really hotting up with temperatures soaring to 30 degrees Celsius in the late part of the afternoon, and the mild easterly wind won't cool around the riders at all.
And the scenery absolutely stunning down in the Belgian Ardennes, and the riders know the road very, very well because of Flèche Wallonne and Liège-Bastogne-Liège, the April Classics. Miguel Indurain also knows these roads, and he'll be very careful today not to allow a silly move to affect his likely lead in this race when he goes into the time trial tomorrow. At the second sprint, though, there was an attack underway. It went clear after around 66 kilometres. Kasputis of the Chazal team and Martin Dembacker of TBM, they were clear at the second sprint at Stavelot, and Kasputis was the man who took the prize. Third place for the record was Thierry Laurent ahead of Eric Decker. And then on the first steep climb of the day, the Côte de la Haute Levée, then the counter-attack started, led by the pink jersey here of Laurent Jalabert. So it wasn't perhaps surprising that Miguel Indurain's arrival in this chasing group has caused a reaction, and they've all come together again. Well, the riders have now just come out of the town of Spa, and they have brought all of the ONCE team to the front here now to try and close this race down for Laurent Jalabert. Some fine team riding here. Earlier it was Benesto, and now it is the pink jersey of ONCE. And as we watch these pictures coming from the race, they announced the retirement of Jerome Blijlevens, the rider who won that sprint a couple of days ago in Dunkirk. And also out of the race today, the little Colombian climber Nelson Rodriguez. He's also retired. You may remember he won a stage in the Alps last year. So 2 important names are out, and the leaders now are down to 3 men. Kasputis has been dropped. He's back in the field here, and the 3 riders who are left out there are Eric Decker, Thierry Laurent and Martin Dembacker.
And the ONCE boys want to give those time bonuses to Laurent Jalabert because at the moment he's just 4 seconds behind Barney Ries in the overall standings, and they've decided now's the time to go for it.
And they've now swung on to the climb of the Côte de la Rede at 167 kilometres covered when they get to the top. Now they're going to have to pace the team up this climb. And look at the corner, another problem on the corner because it was a very tight bend. It may have been a slip gear or an unshipped chain there when they queued up to get around that bend.
That looks very much to me like Laurent Brochard, who went down there, a teammate of Richard Virenque. He was just going into the corner. The riders do this. They'll change gear because they realise the climb is coming, and the gear just gets jammed a little bit. Unfortunately, the mechanic was straight there to help him, and he pushed him on. But as we're doing that at the back, the main field has caught the 3 leaders now, and it's all together at the front of the race. Virenque in second place at the moment. You see the ONCE riders have slipped back to allow the Festina squad to do a little bit of work before they plunge down to the sprint competition.
But there's an attack coming from Konishev, and he's gone very early. But Dmitry Konishev, we just said we haven't seen him. Well, we have now, because he shocked them there. Virenque wasn't ready for a move by Konishev. He came from about 8 or 9 men back, and good for the Russian rider. He's going to fight him all the way to the Alsnap, but they're coming after him now. He slipped it up a gear. Now, has he got the legs left to finish it off with a sprint win and take the maximum points here? And I think he has. As Konishev looks over his shoulder, he's blown it. He's absolutely made a mess of it, and Richard Virenque is jumping away to maximum points on the climb now. Well, hats off to Konishev, but Virenque had seen the move and marked it well.
Well, he'd waited for it. Konishev made a superb move because he was actually at the back of the main field. I don't know how he got to the front. He tried to surprise him. It was a last-ditch effort, but Virenque is going to take maximum points over the top. But can Konishev hold on just to recuperate 1 or 2 points when we go over the top, or will he get picked up by the main field?
So Richard Virenque, the king of the mountains last year, goes over the top of this third category climb and takes the points there. And now he starts the plunge down towards the sprint at Thieu, and then we have the climb of Mont-Thieu, which is a very, very difficult climb indeed.
And this is the attack of Konishev. You see how he waited for a moment to try and surprise Richard Virenque. He flicked just inside himself and the motorbike there, and Virenque was on the far side and had to respond, but he did a great job. The Frenchman really has got guts, and he didn't give up at all. He knew that he had to get this King of the Mountains point. It's going to be an extremely fast sprint here because they drop off the climb of the Côte de la Rede, which they just went over, and they come into the town of Thieu before straight away climbing up again on the Mont Thieu. But the Once boys are under control at the moment. They've got a superb line at the front. They're going to keep the speed up, and slowly they will swing off one by one.
A little chat going on here. In fact, this is Jalabert taking a good look at Jamaluddin Abdou-Japarov, who has moved right up now to the back wheel of Jalabert. They're both racing for the sprint points for different reasons. Jalabert wants to win for the 6 seconds time bonus, and Abdou-Japarov wants to win for the 6 points for that green jersey.
This could be a sprint for the final of a stage victory at the moment. Everybody is nervous. The Once boys, Neil Stevens has done his job. He's swung off. He's left it to the next man, which will probably be Rojas, to do the work. 500 metres to go now. Jalabert knows that he's got to get this sprint or finish second to put himself on equal time with Barney Rice.
And you see the little man in green is mixing it with them now, just waiting to see things. And Bjorn Ries is going to take part in this sprint because he doesn't want to give up his yellow jersey either. This time bonus, in fact, Ries is going to go early and try and make it. And Bjorn Ries is challenging here as they go for the line now. But Laurent Jalabert is going so tremendously quickly. So too, though, is Abdou-Japarov. Jalabert cruises it over the line from Abdou-Japarov, and in third place is the yellow jersey. So what has happened there is that the third place rider gets 2 seconds, and the winner gets 6 seconds. So we now have 2 riders equal in the race on time. So it's going to go down to the last sprint of the day. Jalabert and Bjorn Ries are equal leaders of the Tour de France. Who will be in yellow tonight is still anyone's guess. We'll take a break.
Now, we couldn't come to Belgium and not feature Eddy Merckx in Le Retro. After the break, we'll have a look back at the career of and an interview with the man who's arguably the greatest rider ever to enter the Tour de France.
Amami se vuoi, tienimi se puoi, io son l'amore che svanisce, ma dei baci miei non fidarti mai, io son l'amore che perisce. E quando tra le braccia mi stringi dolcemente, ancor più dolcemente ti dirò, amami se vuoi, tienimi se puoi, perché io son così.
He's discriminated against because of his age. They're discriminated against because they're on a budget. For an open-minded view of car insurance, contact your local Swinton branch.
In 1969, a Belgian made his debut in the Tour de France and not only won it, but dominated the race from start to finish. Eddy Merckx led all 3 classifications, the overall, the points and the mountain competition. The only rider in history ever to do the triple in one tour. Merckx went on to win 4 tours in a row, 5 in all, and racked up an incredible 34 stage wins along the way. And to give you an idea of the magnitude of that achievement, consider that Miguel Indurain has only just broken into double figures with 11 stage wins. Nonetheless, the Spaniard does have the chance to break Merckx's record of consecutive Tour victories this year by making it 5 in a row. And since the King of Belgian cycling only just turned 50 last month, we decided all in all it was a topical time to pay him a visit. Eddy Merckx rode his last race in 1978, but 17 years on he could scarcely be closer to cycling. The Merckx bike factory in the Belgian village of Meiser is part of the same complex of converted farm buildings he lives in, so work is just a short commute across the lawn. Looking back over 400 professional victories, including 5 Tour wins though, he has no difficulty in selecting his favourite.
Oui, je pense que pour moi, certainement, c'est ma première victoire dans le Tour en 1969. C'était ma plus belle victoire pour beaucoup de raisons. La première, parce qu'il y avait 30 ans qu'un coureur belge n'aurait pu gagner le Tour de France. Et puis aussi, je pense qu'après 1969, je n'ai plus le même niveau qu'en 69, du fait que j'ai fait quand même une très lourde chute au mois de septembre à Blois, sur la piste, et je n'avais plus les mêmes moyens qu'auparavant, je pense.
Enough ability to win 4 straight Tours, a mark that could be eclipsed this year by Merckx's closest 90s equivalent, Miguel Indurain. The big difference being that while Indurain dominates the Tour, Merckx dominated the whole of cycling.
Oui, mais je pense que c'est une manière différente de voir les choses. Chacun a son tempérament, chacun a sa vision de voir le sport qu'il pratique. Donc, ceci dit, le Tour de France, certainement l'épreuve la plus importante du cyclisme. Enfin, je ne pense pas qu'il n'y ait que le Tour de France pendant la saison. Et bon, Indurain, pour moi, est certainement un coureur capable de gagner plus que gagner le Tour de France.
Do you think it's bad for cycling that he doesn't ride more races?
Bon, je ne dirais pas que c'est mauvais, mais je dirais que c'est dommage. Surtout dommage pour le cyclisme qu'un coureur de son niveau ne dispute pas des courses pour la gagne en début d'année de la course de la Coupe du Monde, parce que bon, il faut quand même dire que les épreuves telles que Milan-San Remo, le Tour des Flandres, Paris-Roubaix, Liège-Bastogne-Liège et autres classiques de la Coupe du Monde sont quand même les monuments du sport cycliste, et que c'est malheureux qu'un champion de l'envergure d'Indurain n'y participe pas.
These days, the Merckx name is still much in evidence in the big races. His factory turns out 10,000 frames a year. The best of them for professional outfits like Telecom, GAN and Motorola, the team his son Axel rides for. A brave career choice considering what he has to live up to.
Oh ben, certainement que le fait de porter le nom Merckx, bon, d'un certain côté c'est un avantage parce que bon, il y a quand même l'expérience du père, mais d'un autre côté, il y a quand même énormément de pression qui sont établi sur ses épaules, et tout le monde attend d'Axel qui suit la route du père, ou les traces, je dirais, du père. Et bon, ici en Belgique, il n'y a pas beaucoup de coureurs, je pense, qui puissent suivre les traces, que ce soit Axel ou même des autres coureurs belges.
Axel isn't in this year's Tour, but Eddy was there as the race rolled in from France, sitting in the stands alongside Albert I, the real King of Belgium, next to the man who holds the title by an accident of birth. And fittingly, it was a Merckx victory. Telecom's Eric Zabel taking the stage on one of Eddy's bikes.
And Eddy Merckx, in fact, waiting for the arrival of the race today down here at the finishing line. And we're on the climb of Montour now, which has just come after the sprint. And immediately the climb started, there was an attack. It was led by Johan Bruneel of Onsay and quickly joined by the Motorola rider Lance Armstrong on the right of our picture. And this group, I think there's about 7 riders up here now, Paul.
There are, and a very good group of riders it is too, and in fact the main field has closed down a little bit behind. Laurent Jalabert with that final sprint there took the lead in the race at the moment, but what could happen here is Johan Bruneel, his teammate, could actually take it away from him this evening. The break consists of Johan Bruneel, Eric Boyer, a Frenchman, on the left hand of the picture there, who's riding for an Italian team at the moment, Bruno Thibault, Bo Hamburger, Armstrong, the man that we can see at the front at the moment, Lelli from Italy, and Gonzalez Arieta from Bonesto. Looks very much to me as if Miguel has decided he wants to stretch his legs. He's going to ride across to this group. The gap at the moment, the 7 riders in the lead have, is in fact 15 seconds. But this is incredible to see Indurain do something like this.
It's caused the reaction from Jalabert, who didn't really want to chase, I don't think. He would be the race leader if everything stayed as a status quo down below, because we've just checked his time in the time trial, the prologue. And it goes to the man who recorded the best time in the prologue, and it was Jalabert. So he would be the leader, unless, of course, this race does crack up. And Johan Bruneel is the danger man in the breakaway, although not directly a danger to Jalabert, because they're on the same team. At least they would have yellow on the team tonight. And there is Johan Bruneel, the man who has won the fastest stage ever in the history of the Tour de France a couple of years ago, now going clear to be first over the top of Montour at 178 kilometres covered.
Well, as we speak, Laurent Jalabert has jumped across that gap himself. He's joined the group with Miguel Indurain, so there are now 9 or 10 riders behind the lone leader of Johan Bruneel. What a good move by Bruneel. That will, in fact, take a little bit of pressure off Laurent Jalabert, and now it's going to be up to the other teams to chase.
And you can see how they slowed down there, and Bruneel just checking whether this attack is worth going on with. I would suggest it is right now, because this will be an excellent onset ploy. Everybody watching Jalabert, and it's Bruneel who picks up the yellow jersey tonight. Consequently now the reaction is again starting to come, and Festina, I think it's Dufault, is now chasing down the hopefully Bruneel. And Miguel Indurain sitting up near the front as well.
Well, Phil, there are 3 men in the lead at the moment now. Eric Boyer has come up with Miguel Indurain and Johan Bruneel. At the moment, they have about a 10-second lead over the main group, and this is a fantastic thing to see. Everybody has said Miguel Indurain, he wins the Tour de France in the time trials, but he really can ride a good road stage because he waited for everybody to go for the sprint. Everyone was a little bit out of breath there, and on the Montour, he just rode away from all his rivals. This is the chase group of 6 riders, just 10 seconds back on Miguel Indurain. In second place there in the red and blue jersey is Lance Armstrong. In 4th place, more importantly, is number 61, Laurent Jalabert, who realizes he has to get back up there in contention, but he'll play the team make 2. He'll sit back and he'll leave those riders in the front to try and take their chance while using this breakaway. Behind the gap is 20 seconds to the main field.
Well, now we see Mappé having to get to the front, and the Gavies teams also trying to penetrate there a little bit, but they're hampered by the pink jerseys of Onse, who will not react now because they have Jalabert in group number 2 and they have Bruneel in group number 1. And this second group here, well, there's only about 4 riders seriously working in this group, and Bo Hamburger, Laurent Jalabert, Lance Armstrong and Lely are the riders putting their weight behind the chase.
Jalabert is having to do all the work at the front now. He was so much of a fighter, and it looks as if Eric Boyer has been dropped there. He's cracked on the Côte de la Forge. He was trying to stay in contention. He put himself too much into the red zone and couldn't stay with the pace of Miguel Indurain, who now has just 1 rider with him. That's Johan Bruneel. That was a superb effort by Boyer. He worked as much as he could, but now it's Miguel Indurain and Johan Bruneel at the front. 39 seconds is the gap that Miguel Indurain has over Laurent Jalabert. The jersey is slipping off his shoulders and going to the shoulders of number 63, Johan Bruneel. But what a superb move Miguel Indurain is making at the moment. Bruneel has decided he's going to come alongside Miguel and say, look, I can't work with you. It's up to you. I have to protect my teammate, Laurent Jalabert. You go and do it. I'm sorry.
Everybody back in the field except these 2 now. The Tour de France is in full panic.
There's a counter-attack going here. This is Jesper Skibby trying to go clear at the moment, followed by at the back there in the red and blue jersey of Motorola, André Perron. Totally disorganized. Now it's totally flat now as we go into the streets of Liège. Miguel Indurain realizes now it is the final time trial, the final few kilometers. There's confirmation of that gap, 47 seconds to go. Indurain at the front, and still Johan Bruneel has to sit back and watch the superb effort, the athletic movement of Miguel Indurain.
And there you see this man's beautiful position on a bicycle when he settles into his time trial style. He sits very crunched up, rather like Sean Kelly used to sit in his days as a great rider. But he never, ever alters his pedal rhythm. He just sits there.
One of the strongest men in the field as well, because if you look at his power output, some people are saying that he has an output of over 550 watts, which normally a rider who can go to the Olympic Games, that standard, you're looking at 480 to 500 watts. And there's been a crash down there. People are taking all kinds of risks. And that is the bike, I think, of Mario Cipollini, because that's the blue bike that I've been talking about since the start of this tour. He's taken an incredible risk going around the corner and lost it.
45 seconds to the 3 chasers. And for the first time, let's have a look at that crash. You can see it now. Now, why he shot out there, I can only imagine he punctured.
I would think that's the only reason he did. It was either a front or a back wheel puncture, and you just cannot control it if it goes down like that in a corner. And here, in fact, is the team manager of Miguel Indurain coming to the front, pointing out to where the finish is. You can see it. It's just round the corner. There's not far to go. Just give everything you've got.
Well, this morning at the start, Miguel Indurain was 49 seconds off the pace, and Bruneel was 26. And there's a 20-second time bonus for the winner and a 12-second time bonus for the second. So Bruneel should be safe in taking over the race lead at least for a day. But Miguel Indurain has confirmed once again he has come to this Tour de France, I think, with his best form ever. He's never won so many races before a Tour de France than he has won this year.
And in such a fine style as well, and all the tough climbs of the Alps. He won there in the Dauphiné Libéré a little bit earlier in the month of June. He didn't think that his preparation was exactly the same as the year before, because the time of the Tour of Italy had changed by 1 week. 3 kilometers to go for the main field, and it's still 50 seconds to the the Griders 3 group, and then they've got 1 minute to the main field.
2 kilometers to go, a minute now his gains. That would have been a nice gain to have had in the time trial tomorrow. He's now taken it the day before the time trial. There are the 3 chasers, and not too far behind them is the big peloton. They might just survive, and this would be a great result for Jesper Skibby, Andrea Perron and Jens Heppner.
And there's the last kilometre, 1 kilometre to go for Miguel Indurain, and with a minute over the main field, there is absolutely no chance that they're going to come back to Big Mig, and in a short while, Johan Bruneel will decide when to make his move to try and beat Miguel Indurain for the stage victory and the yellow jersey. The final time check is 40 seconds and 46 seconds to the main field.
So round a couple of corners now, and then Bruneel will get the scent of the banner. It's a great victory for Bruneel, because it was his attack that started the move, remember. Indurain came to him. Bruneel was thinking of a win for Belgium and for the Once team, and now he's going to take the yellow jersey as well. But Indurain, the engine, look at his face, no alteration in his pace. He is giving this man a near 20-kilometre lead out for the victory. But the real winner today, no doubt who that is, it will be Miguel Indurain. What a superb athlete. Now he is winning Tours de France in the manner of the greats, like Eddy Merckx. Merckx is watching him now. Bruneel is going to have to dig deep, but it shouldn't be too difficult now as he goes over the top of Indurain. Indurain takes his wheel and holds it so he gets the same time. Bruneel gets the cheers. Indurain is the man who's done the ride though, and Bruneel's reward will be a yellow jersey tonight. The 3 escapers are hanging on, but only just as the main field chases them down, and the clock is counting down the fortunes of all of the favourites now in this year's Tour de France. At their respective dinner tables tonight, they're going to say, how on earth does he do it? And really, what chance have we got? Perron looks over his shoulder. He doesn't want to lead out this race, but if he doesn't, they're going to catch him anyway. 300 metres to go now as Andrea Perron leads out Jesper Skibby, who is a very good finisher. The field are almost on them now as they line up for the finish. Perron is still there, but just now Jesper Skibby is here, and Heppner is just behind. Now Lombardi is coming too, and the sprinters, Jalabert is trying as well. Jesper gets it ahead of Heppner, Lombardi and Jalabert over the line. And here it is, the icing on the cake in the end, going to the Belgian. That's for whom the cheers were today, because Belgian riders want to win it in their own country, and the prize, a yellow jersey for Johan Bruneel tonight. For the record, the stage was won by Johan Bruneel, but the rider in second place, Miguel Indurain, was the real animator. Third was Jesper Skibby, and fourth Jens Heppner, but in the end they were given the same time as the fast-finishing bunch, led home by Jalabert and Lombardi. They were 50 seconds back. Tonight, Bruneel salutes his people. What a happy day for him. And it was completed too with a yellow jersey as the new overall leader of the Tour de France. Indurain is now a daunting second. Laurent Jalabert remains in third. Of the favourites, Zula, Berzin, Rominger and co. are not going to sleep too well tonight. But for the moment, Bruneel is on top, and Paul Sherwin is with him.
Could you have dreamed this morning that you were going to put on the yellow jersey tonight?
No, I never thought about it. We had to attack in the final, and I attacked on the Mont too. But I never thought about it. It was only to try to eliminate some sprinters for Jalabert, and I was surprised to see Indurain, and from that moment I took his wheel and he took me to the finish.
And just 15 kilometers to go, you actually came up alongside Indurain, you pushed him. What did you say to him there?
He asked me to ride with him, and I told him I could not. The team tactic was like that. We have Zule that is riding for the general classification, and Indurain is a concurrent for him, so I could not ride with him.
And Johan Bruneel, the only man to benefit today from the great power from the Spanish champion. The other jerseys also changed shoulders today. Laurent Jalabert is now the new leader in the green jersey points competition, and Richard Virenque, last year's King of the Mountains champion, has got the lead in that one too. There's still time to try and guess the winner of tomorrow's time trial, and you could win a complete set of leaders' jerseys and a Lime mascot as well. The number to ring with your selection is 0891 44 44 77. And today we saw a great champion at play, and he should take the lead in this race tomorrow after the individual time trial. But for the moment at least, Johan Bruneel is the leader of this year's Tour de France, and Eddy Merckx came alongside him to hold that coveted maillot jaune. The people of Liège also got what they were hoping for, a home win here in Belgium. Until tomorrow night at 6:45, goodbye.
The official Channel 4 Tour de France magazine, price £3.50, is out now in the shops. And if you want to order direct, then phone 0181 392 1100 at any time.
After a day of travel to the Alps from Belgium, the 169 riders surviving a Tour de France being run at record speeds leave the Grand Bornand. Their destination, La Plagne, 2,000 metres above sea level. It's the first day in yellow for Miguel Indurain, but his lead a tenuous one, as two teams, Oncé and Gay-Viz, have riders well placed to attack him. Indurain leads the Gay-Viz riders Bjarne Riis by 23 seconds and Evgeny Berzin by 2 minutes 20. Oncé have Johan Bruneel at 2:32 and Laurent Jalabert is lying 6th. Well, Oncé could be spoilt for choice because they also have Melchior Mauri 7th, Alex Zula 9th, Eric Breukink 10th and in 12th place Mariano Rojas. And behind me, the slopes of La Plagne. They've only been used twice before in the Tour de France, but they've always given us a dramatic finish. But before we join the action on the Col de Portet, here's Paul Sherwin now to tell us more about the man who has dared to challenge Miguel Indurain.
At 31 years of age, Bjarne Riis is the same age as Miguel Indurain. Riis was born in Herning, Denmark, but now resides in Luxembourg. A professional for 10 years, it was not until the 1988 Tour de l'Avenir that he was noticed by Laurent Fignon, who immediately brought him into the System U team, where he became Fignon's right-hand man. Fignon claimed that although Riis worked selflessly for him in the Tour de France, he lacked confidence in himself. That all changed in 1993 when Riis stayed with the big stars of the Tour de France in the mountains and reached Paris in 5th place in the overall standings. Last year he would have made another top 10 place if he hadn't been taken ill on the stage over the Mont Ventoux, slumping to 14th place in Paris. Riis wore the yellow jersey with pride in this year's event, but the superb time trial performance on Sunday confirmed that he'll be a man to watch. The next 2 days in the Alps will determine whether or not he can be a serious challenger to Miguel Indurain's supremacy.
And this first day in the Alps is not particularly long at 160 kilometres, but the climbs are there for us all to see. A couple of small foothills to start with, the Col du Marais and the Col de l'Épine, and then they go on to the Côte d'Héry. And then the first big climb is the Col de Portet, followed by the hill up to the finish at La Plagne. And now on the first serious climb of this year's Tour de France, the Col de Portet, coming at 73 kilometres covered. The expected attacks have come from Oncé, with no sign of Bjarne Riis in the forward group. It is in fact the Kelme rider coming up the climb on his own, Federico Munoz, and as they go over the top, second is Alex Zula, third is Bo Hamburger. They were 7 seconds back. Richard Virenque coming up just over 1 minute back. The field all splitting up here on the approach to the summit. Laurent Dufaux, Miranda, Indurain going over the top of the climb in 7th place, just ahead of Lance Armstrong and his teammate Aparicio. Gerard Rouet over there in 10th place and Mariano Rojas there as well. So the The threat, the attack from Bjarne Riis has not yet materialised. He is in the group because on the descent, 3 riders remaining clear. Munoz, Zule and Hamburger. Armstrong in pursuit, and the field generally regrouping behind him. And it seems the Banesto team for the moment have got this race under control. And partway up now, the Col de Portet, and there's a sensation on the climb because Evgeny Berzin of the Gawies team has been left behind by this bunch of some 30 men. The tremendous pace being set by Alex Zule. He'd started the climb in the company of 2 other riders, Munoz of the Kelme team and Bo Hamburger of TVM, with Lance Armstrong chasing. Armstrong never made it, and in fact this man has blown the other 2 away. He now leads by 3 minutes and 35 seconds ahead of the main field, and Indurain is trying to limit his losses here. This has been a tremendous attack by Once, and today Alex Zule really has found his wings.
It really has. This is a superb move by Alex Zule, but the whole team are riding well today. They're at the front of the field. They've still got Johan Brunel in contact. They've still got Laurent Jalabert. They've got Maelto Mauri still there. It is a superb tactical move by this team, which is what they must do if they want to try and put Miguel Indurain into pressure, because man against man, I don't think anybody can beat Miguel Indurain, but 5 against 1, then I think they may stand a chance.
As regards the Gawies team, it really does seem now as though it will have to settle for a new leader in Bjarne Riis. At the start this morning, Gawies accepted that they had 2 leaders of the team, and their manager, Emmanuel Bombini, decided to give Riis 3 riders to work for him, Colombo, Gotti and Bontempi. The other 4 riders on the team were going to have to work for Berzin. Now, Bombini wouldn't say what would happen if Riis attacked, and indeed would Berzin counter that move. Well, it's academic now, because here at the front, or just in this group here, in this lead group, is Bjarne Riis, while Berzin has been dropped and is being nursed at the moment by Bruno Kengialta. So Riis is coming through quite clearly now as the strongest man on the Gawies team. Now approaching the summit of the Col de Portet, Alex Zule has continued to gain time over a field which is desperately trying to contain him. He comes up to the summit here, an average today 34 kilometers an hour. This is a tremendous piece of cycling by Alex Zule, and has really put Miguel Indurain and his teammates on the defensive. He now begins the long descent and then along the valley before he'll start the climb up towards the finish at La Plagne. And there is Miguel Indurain. He doesn't certainly look to be in any trouble at all here, but all the way up the climb, Zule has continued to gain time. The last check we had was 4 minutes. There will be another time check running on top of the hill, but also in this group we've got the other big climbers. Pantani is here, Claudio Chiappucci, Bjarne Riis, Zenon Jaskula, Alvaro Mejia and Pelliccioli, the king of the mountains in the Tour of Italy last year. They are still in this group, and perhaps all waiting to pounce Indurain when they start the last climb to La Plagne.
Well, everybody's there, and they've all said that they will attack Miguel Indurain, and that is the only place to do it on the final climb. 18 kilometers is the distance from the bottom of the mountain here to the summit, and that would be a great launch pad for somebody like Marco Pantani. But don't forget, he's over 10 minutes behind Miguel Indurain already in the overall standings.
A long way down now for Alex Zule, and still coming up the other side, still the clock ticking for the group Indurain. And into our cameras now, Bo Hamburger, dropped by Alex Zule on the lower slopes of the climb. And look at the clock, Paul. And this is to Hamburger, which means that Zule is over 5 minutes ahead of the main field here. Hamburger is going backwards, and he goes under the banner, 4:53 down.
Well, that is incredible. At the moment, that would mean that there's the main group coming up behind. They are pushing it up. Richard Virenque goes over in 3rd place to get maximum points there that he can get from the group. Dufaux was next, and then Miguel Indurain. So at the moment, Alex Zule is in the yellow jersey.
So Alex Zule is the virtual leader of the Tour de France on the road today. He has taken back all the time he has lost. The Once team have attacked Miguel Indurain ever since this stage began. This is a most unusual Tour de France, but for us it's a really great one. And just look at this, Evgeny Berzin is 6 minutes and 46 seconds down on Zule, and so he's almost 3 minutes behind the Indurain bunch as well. He is in desperate trouble. And so as Berzin goes over the summit, and this man now is the virtual leader of the Tour de France, we'll take a break.
There'll be a new winner at La Plagne today, because the Tour's only been here twice and Laurent Fignon won both times. The first time in '84, he went on to win the whole thing. The real drama, though, came the second time around in 1987. That story coming up after the break.
From Gillette comes a uniquely different form of protection from a...
Coffee.
When Laurent Fignon won the inaugural stage to La Plagne in 1984, he was on the way to claiming his second consecutive Tour de France. But when he repeated the trick 3 years later, the real story was unfolding behind him. Pedro Delgado was in yellow and thought he'd finally seen off the challenge of Stephen Roche, who'd been left for dead on the climb. But as Delgado neared the finish, he suddenly had company.
And just who is that rider coming up behind? Because that looks like Roche. That looks like Stephen Roche. It's Stephen Roche who's come over the line. He almost caught Pedro Delgado. I don't believe it.
Roche looked spent on the line but recovered to take the Tour. And if La Plagne wasn't the stage that won it for him, it was certainly the stage where he saved himself from losing it. And Stephen Roche was back in action last night for a rest day charity race in the Grand Bornand. That had what must have been one of the strongest fields of all time, including the winners of 16 Tours. Among the greats pulling in their stomachs and putting on the old gear, or most of it anyway, were Raymond Poulidor, Bernard Hinault, Joop Zoetemelk, and the biggest name of the lot, Eddy Merckx. Each veteran led a team comprising a celebrity, a sponsor and a local youngster in a time trial to raise money for disabled children's bikes. And just like the old days, many of the riders were carrying their own spares. Lucien Aymar, the 1966 winner, needed a bit of charity himself to get going. Mostly, though, it was the old-timers who were helping their teammates around. Although after some fancy bike handling, Bernard Thévenet eventually had to give up on one of his stragglers. The last team off was that of Eddy Merckx, much to the amusement of his peers. And if the cannibal was carrying a few excess pounds at the start, that was nothing to the extra 17 stone he had to push up the final climb. It paid off, though. Merckx won, just like he always used to.
And just before we go back to the racing, there's an interesting footnote to that 1987 stage finish here at La Plagne, because all three of the main participants in it, Laurent Fignon, Pedro Delgado and Stephen Roche, are here today commentating for television. Somehow, though, I don't think Stephen will have reminded Pedro about it. Back to the race then now with Phil and Paul.
Thanks, Gary, and you know La Plagne is now set to offer another desperate finish here today, because Alex Zülle, who had a gain of 5 minutes and 20 seconds, we are now at 4 minutes and 25 seconds. So Zülle is going to have to hang on. This is the rider who is chasing him, Pavel Tonkov of the Lamprey team. He broke clear as soon as the climb began. Now, the riders are on the climb up to the finish, but when they were coming down the Cormet de Roseland, the main field, led by Indurain in yellow, were very lucky to escape an accident, because one of the television motorbikes didn't make a hairpin bend. Down went the bike, and the riders were very lucky to get through on the inside. Now, I have to say, you know, that we often forget that when we watch these pictures on television, the pilots of the motorbikes and the cameramen are every bit as brave as the riders on these descents, and I'm happy to report that no one at all was injured. Rees now has taken closer order to Miguel Indurain. He's come right up onto his back wheel, and surely he's done enough now to prove to the Gay Wiz team that there is only one leader, and it is the Danish champion. He's right there now.
And this is the damage that's been done at the back of that group. You see there is Bruno Thibaut, and it looks very much as if Mauri is going out of the back as well there. Looks across at this, in fact, is Rojas who's been suffering. Mauri must have managed to stay in contact. Jasculo is just in front of them, so there are a lot of riders being shelled out here.
But still we have Aparicio setting the pace. Indurain thinking it's not good enough and gone round him. And also going around the side of him is Laurent Dufaux and Bjorn Rees. Bjorn Rees is now actually beginning to follow Indurain. Remember, there's only 23 seconds difference, and if he senses Indurain is cooked, he'll take him before the finish. Here is Alex Zülle. He's seen to be giving up and losing ground. He waves his team card away. He wants to get on with the concentration. I think the news has come there from his team manager that when he was thought he was losing ground, he's being told now he's gaining it again. The lead is up 4 minutes 50 seconds the gap, and Alex Zula is turning in a sensational ride today.
And here, in fact, Aparicio is being dropped from the main group, meaning that Miguel Indurain is totally alone, and he's put the pressure on. In fact, everybody is starting to look for gap. They're breathing for air, and they can't follow the speed of Miguel Indurain at the moment.
Indurain is causing a lot of trouble here, and I think, you know, slipping away from our picture has gone the Danish champion. I think Rees suddenly hit the wall and just dropped to the back of the group. He's gone from here.
Well, he decided, now I'm alone, I've got to give my own time trial. Zule's had enough time at the front, and he really has put the pressure on. He's going to ride his time trial now. Gotti has moved up to his wheel, and it may well be that Gotti is going to be the leader of the Gavies team, because there you can see just at the back of that group, Barney Rees is, in fact, he has cracked, and so has the green jersey of Laurent Jalabert. He has disappeared from this group as well.
Well, Indurain had got the message that, in fact, Zula had accelerated and was increasing his lead, and he thought enough is enough, and he's going it alone.
What a man. In fact, Tony Rominger is now at the back of the group, suffering, gasping for air. Indurain has decided, now I'm going to do it. You've played with me all day. Now I'll show you who is the real champion of this Tour de France, and this is an absolutely superb effort. He really is putting the hammer down.
Here's Pavel Tonkov, and look at this, Indurain has got him. He's wiped him out in no time at all. Indurain has come up to Pavel Tonkov, which now leaves just Alex Zula up front. Tonkov is in more than a little bit of trouble now, and he's going to find that a tornado is about to come through.
And he will have a hard time. The speed that Miguel Indurain is going at the moment, if he can just survive and stay on the wheel of Miguel Indurain, it may well be that Pavel Tonkov is going to climb into a very high place in the overall standings today. The chasing group of 3 riders here, you can see the balding head of Marco Pantani, so his knee obviously not giving him trouble, and the Italian climber Ivan Gotti from the Gavies squad is there as well, but the terrible pace of Miguel Indurain has brought him straight up to Pavel Tonkov.
The attack by Zula has done one thing. It has brought to our screens the best out of this man, Miguel Indurain. He has had to produce an unbelievable fight back to come after Alex Zula. And to do it, he's blown everybody away, including number 41, Tony Rominger, who is now in all sorts of trouble here and just wants the climb of La Plana to come to an end.
Well, Miguel Indurain really has played a superb tactical game in this year's Tour de France. You know, nobody would have expected that move the day before a time trial. He went out and slammed them once. He came back and won the time trial. But very often, the day after a rest day, it's so difficult, and the riders use that first day in the mountains to get their legs. It's the day that Miguel Indurain has used to actually destroy everyone.
And Tony Rominger quite happy to accept a drink off Claudio Chiappucci here. These riders now are on a survival course as they wait for the summit of La Plana, and it's not too far now for Alex Zula. The crowd are getting thicker now. That will inspire Alex a little bit more, and they know exactly what has been going on the other mountains around the Alps today, because they listen on the radios, and they know that this has been a great exploit by Alex Zula. He's still got 3 minutes and 9 seconds, obviously. Surely that will be enough for him to try and conserve for the victory as he goes under the 5 kilometers to go banner. Just 3 miles to the summit of La Plana, and that is going to seem an awful long way, because this man is still going well. His rhythm is all there. Here's a man now firing on all cylinders. He's feeling insulted that anybody dare attack him and his leader's yellow jersey. Here is Pantani, a welcome shower. Gotti just behind him. Gotti will not help, I don't think, because he will hope that Bjorn Rees has little inspiration and comes back a little bit later on, but I can't see that happening now. 1,000 meters separating the winner of the Tour de France for the past 4 years, and Alex Zula, who for a while today had visions of pulling on the race leader's yellow jersey tonight. But this great man, Miguel Indurain, can always put matters to rights. Just give him time.
Indurain looking extremely collected at the moment, concentrated on the job at hand. He's riding exceptionally well still. He keeps his pedal rhythms up high. He turns that gear nice and fluidly. He still has 3 minutes to build up and catch back to Alex Zula. Zula riding superbly at the front. He's obviously digging deep now, trying to get every last little bit out of himself. This, in fact, is Lanfranca from the Breccialet squad. He can't stay in contact with Marco Pantani, and Pantani will be just a little bit further up the road there, and there, in fact, he is still with Ivan Gotti.
And now Alex Zula is arriving around the lower slopes of the ski station here at La Plagne. His lead, 2 minutes 40 seconds. There's a big crowd here. Jean-Francois Pecheur just trying to work out what's going on, and the answer is that Miguel Indurain, Jean-Francois, is getting closer and closer to Alex Zülle.
The two climbers here, Pantani at the front and Ivan Gotti at the back, trying very much to keep in contact, but they really can't. Still, it's only 1 kilometre that separates them. As Zülle goes under the 2 kilometre banner, Miguel Indurain went under the 3 kilometre banner. There is 1 kilometre between them on the road.
There's the Basque flag being waved in front of Miguel Indurain.
He's flying along, the man from Navarre at the moment. You know, he really has kept exactly the same tempo all the way up this climb, and it was a tempo that nobody else could follow. Tony Rominger tried for a while, Richard Virenque tried, but once this man from Navarre put the hammer down, they were left trailing in his wake, and you know, it's not very far to go now. Alex Zülle is going to take, I believe, a fantastic stage victory and at the same time move into second place in the overall standings. 1 kilometre to go is all he has to do. He's done the ride of his life today. He really has bounced back from his bad performance in the time trial, and you see he's fighting with his bike now. There's not a great deal of energy left in that body of Alex Zülle.
Well, I'm not surprised. Alex Zülle now in the last kilometre of today's stage of the Tour de France, and what a marvellous stage it has been thanks to this rider here. He went out on the attack, and at one stage he was the leader of the Tour on the road. He had recovered all of his deficit, and it has taken a solitary move by Miguel Indurain to bring this race back to order.
Miguel Indurain has done a superb job today. You know, I thought he was suffering. I thought he was going to have a hard time with all those climbers, but the power of this man when we've come to the mountains really has blown everybody away.
This has been a superb ride by Alex Zülle, the man who has never won a stage of the Tour de France, and on his birthday in his first Tour a few years ago now, he took the race lead, but not for long. Now he's getting his first stage win and will remain very much a challenger in this year's race. The Once team came out to attack today. They attacked from the start and they finished with the stage winner. You can't do any more than that. Zülle coming up to the line in 4 hours, 41 minutes and about 17 seconds. Alex Zülle gets the stage. The camera quickly goes down now to pick up the yellow jersey of the Tour de France, and that's what he will remain.
Just down there on the finish line, I caught a glimpse of Miguel Indurain's manager there, Francis Lafargue. He's got a smile about a mile wide as he's waiting for Miguel to come up to the line here, 1:29. So it's not going to be very much less than that when he comes up here. He's still himself putting everything he's got to come to the line and save his day.
And he's still finding the effort to sprint, but these last few kilometres have been sensational by Indurain. There's the finishing line, and there's the clock on the left of our screen. It was over 5 minutes at the bottom, and it's going to be just around about 2 at the top, and he's grasping every second of it. Indurain knows he's under pressure this year, but they're not going to beat him without a great fight. What a ride by the champion. 2 minutes and 2 seconds down. And after Indurain finished in second place, well, the rest of the riders really did have a bad time on the climb. The third place was taken by Pavel Tonkov. He was 4 minutes 11 seconds back, and not far behind him came Marco Pantani, taking fourth place at 4 minutes 37 seconds, and Ivan Gotti was just behind him. Richard Virenque scored a few more points for the King of the Mountains. He got sixth, 6 minutes and 5 seconds back. Tony Rominger was just behind him, and then came the group led in by Laurent Jalabert and around about 7.5 minutes behind. Bjarne Riis couldn't even hang on to that group. He got a separate time of almost 7 minutes and 40 seconds. And on a day when Miguel Indurain was forced to fight back, Pavel Tonkov took third place, but 4 minutes 11 seconds behind. Marco Pantani and Ivan Gotti finished fourth and fifth, with Richard Virenque heading home Tony Rominger, but they were over 6 minutes back. Bjarne Riis finished 18th. He lost 7 minutes and 37 seconds. Evgeny Berzin really did hit the wall big time. He was 17 minutes and 28 seconds back. Well, Alex Zülle survived today, and he'll be remembered as the man who really had a go. But by the time Sean Yates arrived, the heavens had opened. Yates finished 33 minutes behind in a torrential storm. 2 minutes later, the main field came in. What a great athlete Miguel Indurain is. Again, he has showed his determination when pushed into a corner, and another yellow jersey tonight is his. He now has the big time gaps. Zuller is second, 2 minutes 27 seconds back. Rees is third, almost 6 minutes down. Rominger is nearer 7. Everyone today felt the champion vent his anger. Just time to mention this week's competition. We'd like you to pick the winner of Sunday's stage in the Pyrenees to Gouzet-Neige. The prize, a set of race leaders' jerseys, the green, the yellow and the polka dot. To make your choice, just phone us on 0891 44 44 77. And the best of luck. Well, I'm sorry to have to say goodbye to you tonight from the comparative dryness of the commentary box, but the area has now been flooded following the storm which has hit the riders just finishing. Tomorrow we'll be on the climb of Alpe d'Huez. That'll be another grand battle. Until then, at 6:30, goodbye.
The official Channel 4 Tour de France magazine.
At midday, the hot sun high in the sky, the 153 Tourmen left for Alpe d'Huez. Yesterday, 15 riders gave up the struggle, among them Olaf Ludwig and the sprinter Jan Zurada. And this morning, Mario Cipollini did not take the start. The route takes them into the heart of the Alps today, crossing the giants Col de la Madeleine and Col de la Croix de Fer. Waiting at the end is the wall itself, Alpe d'Huez. The man audacious enough to challenge Indurain yesterday was Alex Zülle, and he was all smiles today as he faced his second day at altitude. His memory at La Plagne will be treasured forever, and he was thankful for that. The Swiss rider at last showed everyone the ability we all knew he had. Miguel Indurain only confirmed his reputation. This great champion left everyone behind as he was forced to defend his lead and chase Alex Zülle to the line. And this morning, wearing long sleeves, which seemed an odd choice considering the weather, Indurain was more relaxed than ever, an ominous sign for those who still cherish hopes of attacking him. Overall now, the Spaniard leads Zülle by 2 minutes and 27 seconds. Rees is down to third, but 5 minutes 58 seconds back, and Rominger is fourth. The French green jersey wearer, Laurent Jalabert, is sixth, and the King of the Mountains leader, Richard Virenque, is 13th. Marco Pantani came up to 11th, and the most sensational fall from grace, that came from Evgeny Berzin. He's now 21st and 17 minutes and 47 seconds back. Our two British riders, well, they soldier on as well. Max Chiandri is 55th and Sean Yates 109th. Well, the riders on this climb now, the Col de la Madeleine, and it takes them up to 6,562 feet or 2,000 metres, and there hasn't been attack anywhere on the climb at all today. Eric van der Aarden, though, has abandoned, and there are a couple of riders in difficulty, but basically all together. And this is now a gift here for the polka dot jersey of Richard Virenque. He's now waiting to attack. He's moved right up to the front on the wheel of his teammate there, Laurent Brochard. Indurain is about 8 or 9 men back, but doesn't seem too interested in the big points for the King of the Mountains competition today. So as the sprint begins, it is Brochard who leads out Richard Virenque, and it's a clear, easy victory for Virenque too. No challenge at all. Out of the way has gone Brochard. Virenque takes the sprint, and the rider coming over from the Kelme team is the man who was away early on yesterday, Munoz. So the field all together now as they plunge down, heading for the valley. Next stop, the Col de la Croix de Fer. And as we expected, the slopes of the Col de la Croix de Fer has split the field to pieces. The attacks were started down in the valley by Laurent Brochard, and one by one riders reached him and built up a leading group of some 15. In that leading group, Ivan Gotti, the former leader of the Tour on the Gawies team, and the green jersey of Laurent Jalabert, both those riders lying 6th and 5th respectively overall. Then Alvaro Mejia joined him. This is the breakaway. Johan Bruneel came here, but Miguel Indurain has reacted at the back when his lead dropped to, or rather the deficit came 1 minute 50 seconds down. Then he started to counter with his team. As a result, he is now in a group of 15 riders chasing, and Tony Rominger has been dropped by the Indurain group.
Well, it appears that Rominger just cannot survive the Tour de France. The last couple of years, it really has put a lot of pressure on him, I think, being the #1 favourite coming into this event. And it may well be that psychological pressure that he just can't take.
And the list of abandons today has grown steadily. Now there are 10 riders out of the race today, starting with Mario Cipollini, who didn't start this morning. Already gone now, Eric van der Arden. Maurizio Fondriest abandoned at the feed, at the same place, in fact, as Evgeny Berzin. Berzin apparently was ill all day yesterday, and he got as far as the feeding station today and climbed into his team car. Mark Wouters has gone, Mario Chiesa's gone, Jackie Durand, the first leader of this Tour de France, has also given up today. And there's another rider gone out now. Bertolini has abandoned the Tour, and so the list continues to grow.
I have a feeling there, Phil, I caught a glimpse of Tony Rominger actually just getting back into this group with Miguel Indurain. It looked very much like his style at the back of the pack there, just grappling back on it. It'd be interesting if we could go back there and check, because if he has done that, he's made a great recovery.
Either that or Indurain has slowed down the chase a little bit. But Pantani is sitting just off to the left of our picture, tucked in nicely. No doubt waiting for the final climb up to Alpe d'Huez to see if he's got the form to take him clear. Wittseberg is in this group now. He was earlier in the front group. And there you're right, Paul, because there is Tony Rominger on the back of the group now, so he's recovered from that one. He's going to have to hang on as they go over the top. They're about 1.5 kilometres from the top of the Croix de Fer, and the crowd now beginning to thicken up here. Not many spectators on the actual climb because you can't take your cars lower down. The road is simply too narrow to accommodate them.
But people set off very early in the morning to come up here and watch these races, and it takes them an awful long time to get there.
Dufaux setting the pace for Festina and hoping that Richard Virenque will finish it off with more points on this hors category climb, the second of 3 today in the Tour de France. Udo Bolt seems to have found his legs today. He lost time yesterday, but the champion of Germany, who rode so well in the mountains last year, has come good today. It is amazing how the form turns around in just 24 hours when you're in the mountains.
Some riders are just made for the Tour de France, and some riders you only see when they come to the month of July, because they spend the whole of their season preparing just for this one race, and that is a very difficult thing to do, and it's also a very dangerous thing to do, because you can lose a whole season if you come to the Tour and you don't perform.
This is the sprint for the summit now, and Richard Virenque is going for it again, so he's going to make it 2 out of 2, or is he? Little Munoz is going to have a go at him, but I think Virenque has plenty in hand. Munoz is second, and third over the top is Escartine, I think it was. So the 3 riders go through, but the group basically stays together. Indurain just monitoring affairs. He knows that he's going to wait, I think, for the climb of Alpe d'Huez and then give us one of his spectacular chase downs. But as they come up towards the summit, the leaders are over the top. Wittseberg leading through the yellow jersey group. 1 minute and 30 seconds back, Miguel Indurain and the field. So he's got a little bit of work to do on the way down if he wants to be with the leaders when they start the climb of Alpe d'Huez. And we'll be there as well. See you in a few minutes.
In 1952, this place looked like just another out-of-season alpine resort. And this man could have been posing for a catalogue. Don't be fooled, the story of the first stage to Alpe d'Huez coming up. The most famous Alp on the Tour de France route was christened by an Italian. Fausto Coppi in his work clothes rode away from the field to take his first stage win that year en route to victory in Paris. A big win seen on the small screen. 52 was also the first televised tour.
Now, for some reason, the Alp didn't reappear on the race route for another 24 years. But once it did, it quickly became the most famous climb in cycling. And not just for the pros either. Every year, hundreds of amateur racers go up the climb, sweating and straining ahead of the riders before the roads are closed, just so that they can say they've done it too. And now, they can also prove it, courtesy of one of these, which is a diploma of authentication from the tourism office here. As of this morning, 6,691 riders had received one, including, I should say, Mrs. Pat Liggett, who rode up here in fine style last year. Top honours, though, go to the oldest recipient, a 72-year-old American woman. Though what age she was when she set off, I'm not quite sure. All right, back to the race now. It's on the Alp. Here's Phil.
Well, thanks, Gary. Well, you know, I also tried to ride Alpe d'Huez and I gave up 2 miles from the top, so I got no certificate. But this man, I don't think anybody will ever climb it as quick as him. This is Marco Pantani, now on the lower slopes of Alpe d'Huez. He's still in pursuit of the breakaway, which has been clear since the top of the Col de Portet. And that breakaway is reducing in number. Mechir has been dropped for Motorola, so too Udo Bolt at Telecom, the German champion. And the gap is closing. Indurain's group we're looking at down here, we think is just over a minute behind the leaders, but Pantani has left the Indurain group and in about 2 kilometres has flown across to the leaders.
I think they're going to get an awful surprise when he comes up to this group, and you know what he will do? He'll try and go straight by them immediately and continue in his lone effort.
Magnificent piece of climbing by a pure climber. We talk of Lucien Van Impe and Federico Baramontes, the 2 riders who, 6 times each, won the King of the Mountains competition. They were real climbers too. But the others are strong men like Richard Virenque, but Pantani makes it look so easy. This is Ivan Gotti at the front now, the former leader of the Tour de France this year. Blown now is Johan Brunel and gone backward. Pantani, relentless in his pursuit, is cutting his way through to the front.
And the riders you can see there just in front are the leaders of the Tour de France at the moment. This is Ivan Gotti. Ivan Gotti is being followed by Jalabert, and it looks very much to me as if Richard Virenque has cracked the man who's supposed to be the climber. Jalabert is a non-climber, and he's being able to drop Virenque on a climb. Now, this is quite stupendous.
And Escartin is thinking of attacking, but they better look over the shoulders because it's not the yellow jersey of Indurain this time, but this is the most talented climber in the world, and he's onto the back of them as Gotti goes off the front.
Oh, what an incredible ascension. It's so fantastic to see the climbers fighting it out on the slopes of Alpe d'Huez, because in the past it's been strong men, but it's a wonderful thing to see, something that, as you said earlier, we haven't seen for so many years. I don't think since the Colombians came to the Tour de France.
Pantani is steadily climbing into this picture, but he started the mountains yesterday 11 minutes behind Miguel Indurain, so he's not seen yet as a serious contender for that yellow jersey.
Who seems to have slowed off a little bit at the moment, because Gotti is going very much clear at the front there. He's tracked him again. In fact, he got caught a little bit, but now the move that Pantani has to make is to go straight away from this group, because otherwise he's going to drag them up with him to Ivan Gotti, who's in the lead at the moment.
It was almost a desperate dive there for the wheel of Pantani. Virenque is the man who's hooked up first. Escartin trying now to lift the revs just a little bit to hold on. Jalabert continues to follow and follow well. But you see the difference in the pedalling rate of Pantani and the others. Climbers pedal low gears and pedal quickly. The others tend to labour a little bit and just try to hang on by pedaling higher gears.
And all the time, Gérard Rouet at the front, helping Miguel Indurain, pacing him up the climb, just making sure that he limits his losses. He doesn't want to over-tire Indurain. He just wants to take him up the mountain nice and slowly.
And now Marco Pantani is going to have the road to Alpe d'Huez to himself. But I have a feeling that Gotti will not be quite so easy to shake off as the others.
As soon as the incline increases, that's when Marco Pantani will make his move and increase the gas a little bit, just to try and get rid of Gotti, because he knows the best way to win here would be alone, and it is such a risk if he was to drag Ivan Gotti all the way up here to the finish line, because then it would go down to a sprint, and that is very dangerous after a long stage like this.
But it won't happen now, Paul, because it's all over. The elastic has snapped, and Gotti too is now being dispatched back to the rest of the Tour de France. This man is now going up the mountain in true glory on Alpe d'Huez, where climbers have their moment of pleasure, and this rider is so nice to watch. Escartin always looks tired with his rather ugly climbing style, and yet he seems to be able to get it out.
Well, this is the man who is regarded as a right-hand man for Tony Rominger, but today I think he's been given a free hand to ride his own race. He's lying in 10th place in the overall standings, and he will move a little bit higher up. May well be that he'll move above his teammate Tony Rominger, who's having all kinds of difficulties on the Alpe d'Huez.
And there's Bjarne Riis, the first time we managed to see him, around about 55 seconds behind, and with him is Laurent Madouas. He is now ahead of the Indurain group, and he's trying to pick up Richard Virenque, Jalabert and Escartin. And in fact, he has done it. He's come flying up. He's now caught the 3 of them along with Madouas.
Well, that's a superb move by Bjarne Riis. I think yesterday he suffered in the mountains a little bit like 1 or 2 other riders because of the fact he's rode that superb time trial. He had the rest day, which really messes up a lot of riders because it changes their body rhythm, it changes their biological clock. But Rees has got his mountain legs on him today, and he's trying to get up there. But up the road, 50 seconds at the moment is the lead of Marco Pantani, the lone Italian. Richard Virenque has cracked. He's not able to stay with the acceleration of Bjarne Riis there, and he will be soon picked up, I think, by the group of Miguel Indurain.
Which is hardly a group now, Paul. He's dropped so many men. Big Alex Zula's got his wheel. So the first and second in the Tour de France are going up in tandem now on Alpe d'Huez.
Well, Rees will be happy with this performance, and the team manager, Emmanuel Bombini. In fact, Berzin is in the car watching his teammates there. That is quite incredible. In fact, I'm not quite sure that that is permitted under the rules.
Well, it isn't, because the rules are riders who abandon the Tour must retire from the Tour in a following vehicle which is not their team car. But anyway, it gave us a chance to see the two men at least as close together in person, if not in friendship. 1 minute 10 now. Pantani riding away to a superb victory that befits the greatest mountain in the Tour de France, Alpe d'Huez. These riders are hanging on in there, though, and the man who's hurting them most now is Bjarne Riis. We've only just had the time check, and this man has continued to fly towards that group. So very shortly, Miguel Indurain will be in the second group on the road, and he won't be overly concerned about the whereabouts of Pantani.
That's why he's a master. He's learned to dose his efforts. He doesn't panic when a break goes away. He waited, like he did yesterday, until he came to the final climb, and then he turned on the engine and he pulled himself back into the race, as he has done so many times in the past. Now, Miguel Indurain has caught these riders up. What a fantastic ride this man is doing.
And Zula is alongside him. Marco Pantani, this beautiful man who attacked at the bottom of the climb and used such pure speed that's only given to the gifted climbers of this world. And now Indurain has gone to the front. There'll be a scrabble for the back of his wheel, I'm sure of that.
Definitely the one man who will stay there is Alex Zula, because he's in second place in the overall, and he will leave it all up to Miguel Indurain now.
So Indurain, the man in yellow, the champion, is going to have to set the pace. A massive crowd on the slopes of Alpe d'Huez, as many as we've ever seen here today, and it's one of the nicest days too.
About 1 more kilometre for Marco Pantani. He'll arrive in the easier part of the climb of Alpe d'Huez. As Stephen Roach said to you, it's once you get to the top here, once you start to get into the town, it does become a little easier. And if you're at the front riding the way Marco Pantani is, he will just get blown along by the applause of the spectators.
And we're on the approach to the town at the top of the mountain. And just look at the people here, and believe me, this is nothing to what awaits Pantani when he goes across the village to the finishing line. This is the section now which is barriered, because you may remember the Tour de France a few years back when the Colombian climber Fabio Casartelli was almost brought to a standstill because of the people and the motorbikes around him. But now it's Pantani making his way to the summit. Jalabert hanging on to the back wheel here of Ivan Gotti, who has had a great climb himself about d'Huez, will keep his high overall place, as indeed will Laurent Jalabert. 5th and 6th overall in the Tour this morning, these two.
Indurain has got the same face that he's had for the last couple of days. Exactly the same face he had on that stage going into Liège, where he put 50 seconds between himself and his rivals, and that really could well have been the writing on the wall, because the next day he slammed them all in the time trial, apart from this man in the Danish national champion's jersey, Bjarne Riis, who finished just 12 seconds behind Indurain. But he's so concentrated and so determined to get this 5th victory that I think, you know, he's going to walk away with it.
The first 3 riders in this year's Tour de France, proving just why they are the first 3 riders. Indurain, Zula, Riis. In that order overall, in that order on our pictures now. Ivan Gotti is just behind them. He will climb up into 4th place overall tonight. He'll go at least ahead of Tony Rominger, and it just depends on the time losses of Rominger. Jalabert could be up to 5th, or at worst holding his place of 6th overall.
Zule seems to be struggling a little bit at the moment, but you know, just to be able to stay in contact with Miguel Indurain is no mean achievement.
And now we're into the town itself, just to go across the square shortly, and then they run into the finish. They've been pedaling now for over 5 hours today for this trip of 100 miles, 164 kilometres, 162 and a half. And there is the kite in the sky now, 1 kilometre to the summit for Marco Pantani. And it must be a tremendous feeling for this man. He won a stage of the Tour of Switzerland just before the Tour de France started. That was the warning that he was refining his form. Now he's confirmed it today in Alpe d'Huez on what is one of the most beautiful days. There is Laurent Jalabert. He's on the wheel of Ivan Gotti. And he'll be 5th and 6th on the road, these two.
It's a superb performance by a man who's renowned for being a sprinter to get up to the top of the Alpe d'Huez in that. But here is the man who's leading the race at the moment, Marco Pantani. He gets just a little time to recover because this is the flatter part of the course here. He's got 300 or 400 meters before he takes the left-hand turn into the avenue, which has been so magnificent over the last few years with some great victories on the slopes of the Alpe d'Huez.
Gotti and Jalabert hanging back from the group. But here is Marco Pantani now crossing the centre of Alpe d'Huez, and the crowd kept back by barriers this year, so it's a very orderly approach indeed. But look at the strength in this man's legs now. He's being pulled on by inspiration, by the fact he's going to win the most famous day in any Tour de France and be first up to the top of Alpe d'Huez. We've seen so many great names come up here since Fausto Coppi first won back in 1952, but he's overshot the corner. That's the way the cars go, Marco. He's got the time. He's not so much worried about that now. And good job his brakes worked as well. But he's now lined up for the finish. And now he can sprint home. The Italians gasped when they saw that. Now they can welcome him as only Italians can. The flags are waving up here by the finishing line, and Marco Pantani, the finest climber currently racing the circuit in the world of professional cycling, has now proved it to everybody. This man is a beautiful climber, and he's proved it on the best mountain of the Tour. Marco Pantani salutes the crowd. There's the Italian flag on the right, and he's gaining time, although that won't be important to him, and that is why Miguel Indurain isn't too worried at the moment. And Miguel Indurain now is being obliged to lead out the sprint, so Alex Zülle and Bjarne Riis are going to take him in the sprint, I would think. But Indurain, when he doesn't like the people around him, can be very, very determined indeed, and annoyed if they try to jump him. So just let's see what sort of a sprint he can pull out. He knows the way up to Alpe d'Huez. He's done it many times before. He took it tight, so he would force them to attack them on one side of the road. Zülle is warming up for a fine finish here after winning yesterday, but I'm not sure that even Alex Zülle can come on to Miguel Indurain now. It is an uphill finish here, ever so slight, but it's hard after this climb. Indurain, you see, determined to the end. He's going to make it second. Looks over for the rest. Zülle is third. There'll be a separate time for Bjarne Riis. The win, though, for Marco Pantani, and we believe he climbed Alpe d'Huez today at a record speed. We'll confirm that for you tomorrow. He came in 1 minute and 24 seconds ahead of Miguel Indurain and Alex Zülle. Bjarne Riis was 4th, Laurent Madouas was 5th, Laurent Jalabert finished 7th. Richard Virenque came home in 8th, and Ivan Gotti, he was 9th. Tony Rominger, though, he finished a disappointing 12th, losing today 3 minutes and 8 seconds. The two British riders, Sean Yates and Max Chiandri, they finished a long way down but safely inside of the time limit. They stay in the Tour. The slight figure tonight of Marco Pantani, the conqueror of the Alps, on the winner's podium. Well, Miguel Indurain can reflect now on 2 great days in the Alps. He leads Zülle by 2 minutes and 27 seconds. Bjarne Riis is third at 6 minutes exactly. The unluckiest man was without doubt Ivan Gotti. He fell on the final corner, otherwise he would be in 4th place tonight. As it is, he stays 5th, a second behind Tony Rominger. Further down, Pantani is up to 7th place, while Virenque climbs 1 place to 12th. A quick reminder about our competition to name the winner of Sunday's stage in the Pyrenees. It's a mountaintop finish at Gouzet-Neige, and by the way, it's also Miguel Indurain's birthday. The lucky winner will receive a set of leaders' jerseys, and it could be you. The telephone number to ring with your choice, 0891 44 44 77. And today we witnessed the baptism of Marco Pantani. He elevated himself to one of the climbing greats. But it wasn't good news for everybody. A number of riders gave up the Tour de France today, and among them Evgeny Berzin. He's now on his way home. So the Alps are behind the Tour de France now. Tomorrow we go to Etienne. Until tomorrow night at 6:30, goodbye. After 2 days in the Alps, the Tour de France has identified its favourites. Miguel Indurain, the super champion, took second on both days. He consolidated his lead overall. It's a familiar trend, but this race has always done its best to resist. Alex Zülle rode 100 kilometres in front to win at La Plagne and claim the second spot. His was a performance of distinction. On to Alpe d'Huez yesterday, the Italian climber Marco Pantani, nicknamed Dumbo because of his features, won in glorious solitude. His ascent up the Alpe took just 38 minutes, an unofficial record. How this race has changed. Gone from the Tour are the stage winners of the first 6 days. Among them, Jackie Durand, the prologue winner, he abandoned yesterday. Mario Cipollini, the winner of stages 2 and 4, he gave up in the mountains. And Evgeny Berzin, the deposed leader of Gavies, he also retired yesterday. Behind Indurain and Zülle, the gaps have opened, but with the Pyrenees to come, the wounds could heal yet. Pantani is up to 7th, and our 2 British riders, Max Chiandri and Sean Yates, they still carry hopes of a stage win, and they continue towards Paris in great spirit. And this morning, the riders have come away from Alpe d'Huez to the village which nestles at the bottom of the mountain, Bourg d'Oisonne. It is going to be a very hot day in the saddle, and the competition in this record-breaking tour, we can assure you, will be hot as well. Now, apart from Miguel Indurain's leader's yellow jersey, there are 2 other major competitions in the Tour de France. The polka dot jersey for the leader of the King of the Mountains, and the green jersey for the Tour's most consistent daily finisher. French riders are on top of the tables in both cases. Here's Paul Sherwin now to explain more.
Laurent Jalabert is the current leader in the points competition with a 17-point lead over second-place rider Jamaluddin Abdujaparov. The green jersey for the most consistent rider was introduced into the sport to designate the most regular finisher on each individual stage. Today, Abdujaparov will try to score points in the hotspot sprints, which are in designated towns along the race route. Here, the first 3 men across the line will get 6, 4 and 2 points. However, he won't forget the stage finish, where most points can be gained. Richard Virenque currently leads the mountains competition with a 63-point advantage over Alex Zülle. Points are awarded in this competition for the first riders to cross designated mountain passes. The more severe the mountain, the higher the points that can be gained. Virenque is firm favourite for this competition, but one bad day in the Pyrenees could change all that.
And the route today to Saint-Étienne is 199 kilometres. There are 4 climbs en route for the King of the Mountains competition, and there are 2 sprints which Laurent Jalabert should be interested in. The rollout this morning, and the riders leaving Bourg d'Oisonne with the mountains on their backs, and that will give them a happy feeling. But at the first sprint, there was a warning to the whole race. A breakaway was starting at 57 kilometres. Frans Maassen winning the sprint ahead of Andreas Taffy and Rolf Jerman.
Well, a hot and humid afternoon in store for the riders with highs of 30 degrees Celsius, a possibility of a thunderstorm late in the afternoon and only a slight southerly wind.
And the breakaway continuing to gain time over the field. By the time they got to the second sprint at Le Gontard, 129 kilometres covered. Maassen again winning ahead of Taffy, with the British rider Max Chiandri up there as well. The lead now was up to 9 minutes. And of that group of 8, these 2 are the grand survivors now, as they're on the final big climb of the day, the Col de Portet, and then they've just got the 3rd category, Croix de Chauburet, to come. And this is Hernan Buenahora from Colombia and the Kelme team, and with him is the British rider Max Chiandri. Halfway down this climb, there was a major explosion when the attack came first from Armand de las Cuevas, and then Buenahora finished it off. He dropped everybody except Max Chiandri. The other members of this breakaway, as we watch now the chase here by the Gavis riders, but the gap is still around about 7 minutes. And the men who were in the breakaway that started the move, we've already seen Frans Maassen because he won the first 2 sprints. He was the first man to be dropped, in fact. He was quickly joined by Rolf Jerman, then Andrea Taffy, and then Broikik himself, Rolf Oldog and Armand de las Cuevas. But they've got themselves together in a chase group at around about 1 minute and 17 seconds back. This is Maassen, but he's slipping right away now. He's over 3 minutes down.
Chiandri looking extremely good at the moment. Normally, I would have said that Buenahora was the climber and he would be the man setting the pace on this ascension at the moment. But every time it slows down, Chiandri, the Italian, English, American rider, goes to the front, puts the pressure on just to show that Buenahora that I'm in good shape and don't think about attacking me before you get to the summit of this climb, because you're not going to get rid of me.
He made a good start to the season this year, Max Chiandri, winning a stage of the Tirreno Adriatico, which is a big early season stage race in Italy. And his best classic race result, the single-day classic race, he was 9th in the Tour of Flanders in Belgium. This year he's taken out a British racing licence. The British Cycling Federation have granted him a racing licence because he holds, in fact, a British passport, although he lives in Italy. And his first language, he will tell you, is in fact Italian. But he does speak English pretty well. Now Colombo has decided to swing off and let the Benestos come through and continue the trend.
They just picked up Rolf Jerman on their way by there. There are 7 riders up the road in front, and I don't think it'd be very long before they pick up Franz Massen as well. So you can see just how fast the yellow jersey group are travelling at the moment. Time at the front for Miguel Indurain to have a chat with his teammates and say, look, boys, everything's fine. There's nobody in front of any danger at all. We'll just keep the tempo nice and difficult so that nobody can attack me.
So there's the main field, Breukink, Aldag, Delas Cuevas, and we think Andreas Taffy still floating around between bunch and leaders. Beautiful study there of little Buena Hora. And now he's accelerating. He wants the King of the Mountains points and making steady progress in that competition today. But he's not yet anywhere near challenging Richard Virenque. So for the leaders of all of the competitions, Virenque in the King of the Mountains, Jalabert in green, Indurain in yellow. It's been something of a rest day for them because they've allowed the lesser men or the little men of the Tour who aren't challenging them to slip away.
But if there are only 6 riders still left in front of the main field when we come to the finish line, Laurent Jalabert will be in a good position because he would still be able to pick up around about 20 points if Jamaluddin Abdujaparov is no longer in the group.
I'll be surprised, though, in fact, if he isn't, Paul, because it hasn't been too much pressure back there today, and Jamaluddin can hang on when conditions are right. We come up towards the summit now. There's going to be no offer of an attack by Max Chiandri. Quite happy to let the Colombian rider take the points over the top. After all, he's done most of the work up the climb here, and Max has bigger fish to fry. And now they've gone under the banner, Max gets to the front to control things for this small descent.
I have to tell you, if you're looking at the size of this group, which is a very small group as we come to 1 kilometre to the summit, I feel very sure that Jamaluddin Abdujaparov is not going to be there because the pressure has been on enough to get rid of a lot of the non-climbers, and Abdu, I think, today won't have been able to stay in there.
6:46 is the gap at the moment as they continue the tempo towards the summit of the Col de Portet. And Virenque is getting very twitchy. He's starting to build up the tempo. He's checking around to see who is likely to challenge him. His second place overall in this is Alex Zula, Miguel Indurain. He's 3rd in the mountains. Those 3 on a bit of a runaway. So is Indurain going to try and take him on, or indeed Alex Zula? The answer is, I think, no. Richard Virenque, he's on his way up towards the summit. So over the summit come the main field. They're led by Richard Virenque. A little bit of a wait there because the gap is almost 7 minutes. Virenque scores well in the King of the Mountains. The yellow jersey is in 2nd place. Zula is 3rd. So the top 3 men in the King of the Mountains competition there, all scoring points today. So the riders now are going to have to decide what they're going to do about a British rider on the attack today, Max Chiandri with the Colombian Buena Hora. We'll take a break.
One of the best-known faces in cycling history was all but unrecognisable when the Tour finished in Saint-Étienne in 1985. But he not only completed the stage, he went on to win the Tour. In 1985, Bernardino was leading the Tour de France as it headed into Saint-Étienne when this crash brought him down. With a broken nose and serious face wounds, it looked unlikely that he'd be able to finish the stage. And even though the crash happened within 500 metres of the finish, he had to cross the line to avoid disqualification. So the only way to stay in contention for his 5th Tour win was to get back on the bike, which he did. And with blood dropping onto the handlebars, he crossed the line, kept the yellow jersey, and went on to win the race. Now, Eno's teammate and 2nd overall that year was Greg LeMond, the man who staged probably the greatest Tour comeback ever when he rode the 1989 race with shotgun pellets in his body from a hunting accident and beat Laurent Fignon by 8 seconds. Sadly, Greg has been forced to give up cycling because of poor health, but he hasn't given up competition altogether.
I have a big race next winter
called the Birkebeiner. It's America's largest, biggest one-day race. And I have $2,000 riding on it.
The only outlet for Greg LeMond's competitive urge these days is the hilly terrain around his home in suburban Minnesota. The three-time Tour winner is still fitter than most of us will ever be, but he was forced to retire from cycling last December after he was diagnosed as having a rare muscle disease. It wasn't exactly good news, but it did end 3 years of puzzling over why he could no longer compete at the top level.
I at least found a reason that wasn't in my head. I mean, for several years now, I just started thinking, man, maybe your body does go down that fast. But no, nowhere in the history of cycling has a guy with my talent gone down so fast.
And because he fought his fitness battle in public, Greg's reputation as a champion suffered towards the end too. Most people's memory of Le Mans' last tour will be of him abandoning.
How hard was it for you to leave the race you really loved the way you did?
Whew. It was embarrassing. I mean, it was painful. And I kept hoping that I'd turn around, but I knew after the third day there was something wrong. Team time trial, I knew something was wrong.
There's no firm evidence yet, but Greg believes his current problems are connected to the shooting accident which almost killed him in 1986 after his first Tour win. And although he came back to win 2 more, in retrospect he says his illness was affecting him even then, which begs the question of how many he might have won if he'd stayed healthy.
Without my hunting accident, 87, 88, I was just beginning. I mean, right now, if you look at cyclists, they're only reaching their peak at 28, 29. I was 25 when I went on my first tour. My best years would have been 26, 27, 28, 29.
But now the best years are history. His racing bikes are hanging up in the garage, and even the own brand titanium mountain bike is used largely as a family taxi. Greg LeMond retired from cycling a rich man, and he's certainly not complaining about the lifestyle the sport has given him. It's just that at the age of 34, he's not really ready yet to sit back and enjoy it.
I'm leaving the sport unsatisfied, and I'd missed it for the last 3 years. I missed being in that great a shape, being in the front, being competitive, being there to counterattack. I mean, there's nothing better than being at your best in the Tour de France. And it's a game for 3 weeks that lasts. It's like a soap opera, and you get to be the main actor. That's fun. You know?
Well, what a character Greg LeMond is, but I'm not sure, Greg, all of the riders would agree that it's fun to ride the Tour de France. But this man here is having a great Tour de France. A brief glimpse there of Laurent Jalabert leaving the main field, just over 6.5 minutes behind the leaders, who have now gone over the top of the final climb of the day, the Col de Portet. This is Laurent Jalabert on the attack now. But Max Chiandri, the important man for the British viewers today, is out in front still with the Colombian rider Hernan Buenahora.
Well, the other teams in this Tour de France extremely attentive of Laurent Jalabert. That was Gabriel Colombo of the Gaywiz squad that decided he would put the gas on a little bit and bring Jalabert back. But a cheeky move by Jalabert. That jersey competition there, the green jersey competition, really is starting to hot up between Laurent Jalabert and Jamaluddin Abdujaparov.
Now we see the steepening of the descent. Thankfully the roads are dry. We've come down here in 1 or 2 rainstorms in the past. That's brought a lot of people to grief, but these are good descenders roads today. And the riders seeing it quite clearly in front of them. Chiandri, you see, showing a bit more skill here than the little Colombian, and it's quite often the case that the Colombians are not good descenders, but they're absolutely brilliant at climbing.
One thing Max mustn't do now, though, is get too overconfident, because he's probably thinking in the back of his mind back to 1993 when he should have had the stage victory there in Chalon-sur-Marne. There was a break of 7 riders. He had 2 teammates in that group, and when he came up to the line, he was judging the sprint on Johan Museeuw, and all of a sudden, a certain Bjarne Riis came from behind and took both of them on the line.
That was the result of the last climb of the day. Andrea Tafi still out in that little group chasing. He's got the 3rd place, excuse me, over the top. But you see, Buenahora is using both of his brakes. He's got fingertip on both of them. These are the 3 riders chasing. Now, it's not too long ago since Chiandri went round this bend with Buenahora. We've got Tafi sitting at the back now, and in the middle, and going through, is Eric Breukink. The other rider is Rolf Aldag. And then we go back to the main field, who are still just behind Armand de las Cuevas. Well, on Sunday, we go up to Gouzet-Neige, of course, and that was the hunting ground of Robert Miller. 11 years ago, where he won there. And that's the last time a British rider won a road racing stage of the Tour de France, back in 1984. Now, I hope I haven't built Max Chandri up too much here, but normally his finish is a good one in small groups. He is a fast finisher. He's taken out a British racing license this year because he wants to ride the World Championships, which ironically today are in Colombia, and he has a Colombian with him. And because the Italian Cycling Federation have never named him on the World Championship team. So he's got a British passport, he's entitled to a British license.
And let's not forget that to the Olympic Games next year, which is something else he would like to go forward to. And I feel that Chandri should have taken this decision a lot earlier. Now is the time when it gets very nervous. Chandri stretching his legs a little bit there, looking over at the Colombian, and it won't be long before he tries to force him to the front.
And this looks like the streamlined figure of Vyacheslav Yekimov, who's trying to make a late rush away from the main field on the descent. But there's still a number of riders in front. There are, in fact, 5 men in front today. We think Armand de las Cuevas is also in front, but we haven't seen anything of him for some time.
Now's the time when it gets nervous. Now's the time when you wonder how you're going to place the sprint. Chandri will have thought about this for the last 4 or 5 kilometres. He knows the finish here. He knows exactly what he has to do. And he may well have run through 2 or 3 scenarios in his mind of how he's going to try and win this sprint. But if he makes a mistake 300 or 400 metres from the line by choosing the wrong gear or starting to sprint too soon, he could throw away what should be for him an easy victory.
Surprisingly, Max has taken up the pace-making again as we're heading down to the right-hand turn, which will take us into the home straight. There's the kilometre flag. Now, the shivers will be going down the backs of both of them, I would imagine. They're so close to a stage victory in the Tour de France, either one of them. And it's a question of who produces the best finish. Now, 9 times out of 10, Max Chandri would for Great Britain. But indeed, who knows how inspired this Colombian rider will be in the sprint. After all, he's won every climb today. And I'm sure he'll be given the most aggressive riders award of the day. Now, Chandri doesn't want to start too soon. It's a long, long way. It's slightly uphill. The road isn't dead straight. He's, in fact, got himself in a bad position here now because he's going to give the Colombian a fair shot at gold.
Not a bad move, though, for Chandri, because he is a very strong rider. He knows he's got the fastest sprint. He's going to try and lead out and wait till he starts his sprint till just the last moment. And that will be the possibility for him to accelerate as soon as the Colombian comes up alongside him.
He's holding on the left of the road, making the Colombian come on his right shoulder. He is tempting him. He's asking him virtually to come round him and start the sprint, because a sprinter loves to be led to the line. And Max, I think, has put himself in a bad position here, but he may feel he's got the strength to finish off a climber anyway, because climbers aren't usually good sprinters. And now Max is going to have to go from the front, so he's going to be very, very special indeed. He's moving across the road now. The Colombian, you can see him. He hasn't got the strength to get onto the wheel. He's going to have a little dig at Max, but it'll be nothing like enough. And Max Chandri for Great Britain gets the stage. Chandri wins the stage today for Great Britain. The Italian-based rider is home and gets the victory. And the main field on the way down, but there are still riders in front as well. And it still looks to me like it's Ekimov trying to just hold on, but I think his idea is more of a pacemaker for perhaps Jamaluddin Abdu-Japarov. The only trouble is that Vyacheslav Yekimov is so strong, he's ridden most of the people off his wheel at the moment. Now, down to the last kilometre. And this at the back is Andreas Taffy. Breukink is going to lead out. Now Rolf Aldog is the sprinter in the middle, the big German rider. And he's sprinting, don't forget, for 3rd place. Breukink is going to have to be the man to lead them out onto the finishing straight. And now Breukink onto that home straight. You can see the course bending a little way to the left. I don't think Eric is going to do much about this now. He wants Aldag to come through. Well, I don't think Aldag will come through just yet, but watch Taffy. Taffy's the sort of rider who will try to go for a long shot at gold if he can. That's why they're riding on one side of the road only. It forces the moves down the other side. Eric can now see the line and is doing nothing about livening up. Well, he's just beginning to do it now, but you can see the sprinter there, Aldag, very aware of everybody around him. And Rolf Aldag And this sort of finish, he shouldn't be pushed too much to his limit. Breukink is going to have to lead them out, and I think Taffy will try to go before they get too close to the line. There he goes now, Taffy. It's the only way he can do it, holding Aldag very tight up to Breukink. Aldag now gets his wheel. Aldag may have made a mistake here, unless he can finish it off, and I think he can. A nice kick from the real sprinter of the group, Ralph Aldag, and that's why Chandri should be pleased he wasn't with him. Aldag gets it, Taffy and Breukink. Well, while we're watching the pictures of the bunch go down towards the line, we can in fact go to Paul Sherwin, who now has Max Chandri with him.
Max, you know, a couple of years ago it looked like you were going to get your first stage in the Tour de France in 1993. Did you think about that today?
Yeah, I thought about it, sure, you know, because when you throw away a victory like that in the Tour de France, it's very disappointing. But I got over the Alps very well, you know, these couple of days, and from today on I was going to start attacking, you know, obviously that was the only way to get a win.
But this is a great victory for you, because this year for the first time you've taken a British licence. That should be good for the selectors back in the UK.
Yeah, this is dedicated to all the English people on the Tour de France, you know, to myself and to the team, you know. I mean, it's a win from myself. Everybody asking me, who is it, an Italian or an English win? This is Chandri's win.
And here's the arrival of Armand de las Cuevas, 5 minutes and counting since the arrival of the stage winner today, Max Chandri. De las Cuevas happy enough with 6th place. He started most of the action, but he couldn't keep it up in the end. And now, as you can see, more than 5 minutes since Chandri finished. As the race now starts to the line, Abdou Japarov is trying to get onto the wheel as Jalabert. He's tucked in nicely at the moment. Now he dives onto the wheel and kicks off Bjarne Reister. But now you can see Jalabert, and Jalabert is going to be... Oh, and that's got to the photo. Jalabert and Jamaluddin Abdou Japarov hit the line almost in unison, just on 6 minutes down. Happy reading for us tonight, as Max Chandri becomes only the 7th British rider in history to win a stage of the Tour de France. He beat the Colombian Hernan Buenajora. 3rd was Ralph Aldag, followed by Andrea Tafi and Eric Breukink. Now, can you split this? The race referees did, and they gave the 7th place finish to Laurent Jalabert, furthest from the camera. Jalabert marginally increases his overall lead in the green jersey competition, ahead of Jamaluddin Abdou Japarov. British or Italian, it doesn't matter to Max Chandri, who gets his first stage win of the Tour today. It was a day off for the favourite, who finished alongside Miguel Indurain. No change at all among the leaders of this race. Ivan Gotti still looking for just 2 seconds to go in front of Tony Rominger. Max Chandri, though, gained time, and he moves up a little bit. Another yellow jersey tonight for Miguel Indurain as he approaches his 31st birthday on Sunday. And don't forget, make sure your entries are in for our competition, which is on Sunday, to pick the winner of the stage in the Pyrenees to Gouzet-Neige. Phone your selection to 0891 444477, and you could win a set of race leaders' jerseys, yellow, green and polka dot. A great day for Britain and a great day for Max Chandri. And as the rain begins to threaten at the end of this stage of the Tour de France, we'll be back again tomorrow night, same time, 6:30. Until then, goodbye. After a day of remembrance and reflection when the Tour de France allowed Motorola a moment of privacy in grief at Pau. The team is allowed to finish in solitude. The peloton stay behind. But today, with temperatures set to soar into the low 40s, the race will now return to normal as Miguel Indurain concentrates on holding on to his 2 minutes 46 seconds advantage over Alex Zula. Bjarne Riis and Laurent Jalabert come next. The mountains are now gone, and the king for 1995 is the same man as a year ago. It's France's pin-up boy, Richard Virenque. And today we could see the winner of another competition confirmed, Laurent Jalabert in the green jersey, because the race now returns to the flat roads as we go to sea level at the city of Bordeaux. The sprinters are back in their traditional domain. These are the men who snatch the daily prizes by using not just their legs, but their arms as well.
Now, you may have noticed all the faces in that sequence have one thing in common, and not by accident. Later on, I'll be taking an eagle-eyed, iridium-coated, mirror-lensed, but not rose-tinted look at the exploding market in cycling specs.
And the sprinters won't need tinted lenses to enjoy this route today from Pau to Bordeaux. It's 246 kilometres running down towards the city most visited by the race away from Paris. And this will be the 74th stopover in Bordeaux. On the rollout this morning, 117 riders survived from the 189 who started in Saint-Brieuc. And it's been a great tour for Laurent Jalabert, who could still snatch third place overall, by the way, but today, of course, more interested in keeping his green jersey. And he got off to a great start by beating Jamaluddin Abdou Japarov and Eric Decker at the sprint of 58 kilometres in the town of Saint-Mont. The race then regrouped and they stayed all together, so it gave us a chance to show you a rider we haven't seen anything of in this year's Tour de France, Georg Tocznik, the only Austrian in the race and the leader of the Italian Polti team. Now, Georg Tocznik is a great climber, and he had a very, very colourful career as an amateur rider. This is his first Tour de France. He's now set to finish it, which of course is something Miguel Indurain never did, and at the moment he lies 36th overall.
Well, the riders will be happy with their sunglasses this afternoon because it's sun all the way. The temperature is expected to soar up to around 40 degrees Celsius, and the slight wind from the west will in fact cause the riders a little bit of difficulty on the run into Bordeaux.
And we're now looking at Thierry Marie, and he's quite clearly feeling the heat today as we race towards Bordeaux. It really is stiflingly hot, and in fact he broke away about 15 minutes ago for the field. The first real attack of the day. The riders holding off until they could hold off no longer, because if you want to beat the sprinters today, you're going to have to go a long way from home. We're round about 65 kilometres from the finish here. His lead is over 90 seconds now, Paul, and we know him well as the man who put up that tremendous escape into Le Havre back in 1991.
Well, he's not scared of riding on his own for a long period of time, and he's also a very exceptional time trialist as well. If anybody in the main field at the moment can stay away from a chasing pack, it is Thierry Marie. His lead at the moment over actually the 2-minute mark.
Thierry Marie, that escape was more than 234 kilometres when he broke away and led into Le Havre, where he took the leader's yellow jersey for the second time in that tour in 1991, because he also won the prologue time trial. And he's won the prologue time trial on 3 occasions. He's never afraid to have a go. He's a very popular rider here in France because he remains a good cycling clubman. He always looks after the youngsters and he goes out for rides with them at weekends. So there isn't a man watching in France today who wouldn't like to see Thierry Marie win the stage. But there's an awful long way to go. We've also noted on the roadside today the supporters, coaches of the man in the green, white and red jersey here, the Italian champion, Gianni Bugno. Now there's a rider who's done absolutely nothing in this tour, and considering the fact he's one of the upper echelon of pro bike riders.
Probably one of the most paid riders as well, as the next time check comes in for Thierry Marie at 2 minutes 28. Gianni Bugno is a rider who, in fact, it's almost impossible to predict what he's going to do. The man is so full of class. I thought this year he was going to return to some kind of form when he won the Tour of the Mediterranean at the start of the year. He was riding exceptionally, but again, he seems to have slipped back into the doldrums. Chance there to see Jean-René Bernadotte himself, a former yellow jersey holder of the Tour de France, a former stage winner as well, coming up now with the Casarama team car to give Thierry Marie some information on the time split at the moment.
Well, once rivals and quite clearly still very great friends. Jean-René in the car there. Thierry Marie knows only too well the task he faces now, and he knows he needs at least 4 minutes, I would think, if he's going to hold them off into Bordeaux. There's no hills at all on the route today. We've already seen Laurent Jalabert win that sprint of 58 kilometres. There were the 2 small climbs that came before that sprint. Eric Decker won the first one ahead of Laurent Brochard and Claudio Chiappucci, and on the second climb of the day at Orenzon, Laurent Brochard was first this time, Claudio was second, and Marco Serpellini was third. You'll note that the King of the Mountains, 1995, Richard Virenque, didn't bother to contest those 2 climbs at all.
I don't think he needs to worry too much about the few climbs that remain on the way up to Paris at the moment, because he's got such a lead in that competition that he really is already crowned, I think, as the winner of the competition.
The only other sprint of the day, which is really worth a mention, which wasn't shown on our television cameras at all, was the sprint which came at 50 miles, 80 kilometres, and it was called the Prime Louis Ocaña, the man who rode such a brilliant race to win the Tour de France in 1973, and of course the man who crashed out of the race back on the Col de Portet in 1971. Well, Louis Ocaña died last year, and in memory to him today, there was a prize of £4,000 for the first man into Ocaña's former hometown of Copen d'Armagnac, and it was won by Johan Museu of Belgium.
Thierry Marie now has to get into his rhythm and decide that this is going to be a very long effort for him today. He's still now got something like 67 kilometers to go before he gets to the finish, and at the moment in the main field there is no reaction at all. It's still, as we've seen many days in the Tour de France so far, the Banesto squad at the front setting a tempo. They're not too worried about chasing down Thierry Marie. They will wait, I think, until later when the teams of the big sprinters come to the front and help them.
And there we can see Banesto driving at the front of the race, and Miguel Indurain feeling no pressure at all today. It's not the day to attack the leader of the Tour de France. It would be folly. This is a day to offer to the others in the race. Miguel will be looking to the time trial on Saturday to try and increase his overall lead. And so, as we watch the peloton head towards the finish in Bordeaux today, if we could just be permitted to say thank you for all your faxes, phone calls that you have sent us since over these past 2 days, which of course has been difficult for everybody on the Tour de France. They have been appreciated, and where applicable we have passed those comments on to the Motorola cycling team. Anyway, as the field is now regrouping, just on 2 minutes behind the leader on the road, Thierry Marie, it's a good time for us to take a break.
In 1975, did Barry Hoban A win a stage in Bordeaux, or B astonish the crowd by turning into a werewolf during the bunch sprint? Find out after the break. In 1975, an ecstatic, not to say rabid-looking Barry Hoban won the bunch sprint to take the stage to Bordeaux, and not for the first time either. 2 of his British record of 8 Tour stage victories came here, the other one in 1969.
And I'll bet it was sweltering on both occasions, because whatever the weather on the rest of the Tour, you can always count on a scorcher in Bordeaux. You'll notice, though, that the riders weren't wearing sunglasses in that 1975 photograph. When the peloton rolls in today, though, it'll be a complete contrast. If a finish line photographer waited until he saw the whites of a rider's eyes before shooting these days, he'd be run over. There's hardly a naked eye in the race, and not because Laurent Jalabert led a bulk buying trip to the Sunglass Hut either. Quite the opposite. Specs have become big business on the Tour, and there's fierce competition to furnish the faces that matter.
Because it's obviously the biggest cycling event in the world. It's where the top athletes show their wares. It's the biggest event we have in the world.
Tour de France, c'est l'événement mondial, bien sûr, au même titre que les Jeux Olympiques ou la Coupe du Monde de football. Donc pour nous, c'est très important d'être présent sur le Tour de France.
Among Bollet's big names are Jalabert, Abdou Japarov, and before he abandoned, Berzin. Oakley have Armstrong, Virenque, and the rest of the Festina team. Oakley, an American company, were the first to get a foot in the Tour in 1985 when they signed up Greg LeMond and Phil Anderson.
Once the Tour came around, you know, Oakley used to give me the glasses to distribute amongst the riders. They weren't sure if it was going to take off, and I can remember that, you know, after 1 week I had to send over for another 100 pairs of glasses. It was incredible how it took off just that first year.
Oddly for the market leader, Oakley's Tour operation has the unfortunate look of a car park bung to a football manager. While Bollet, the relative newcomers, set up shop each day in the start village and entertain a steady stream of the people who matter. Cyclists, of course, race officials for diplomatic purposes, and sports photographers, armed with the evidence that all the PR has paid off. Of course, Oakley and Bollet aren't the only specs on the Tour. The biggest name of all is supplied by one of the smaller companies, the Rudy Project. And the Italians, who were always a fashion law unto themselves, are mostly wearing Bricos, which are so well branded you wonder how the riders see out of them. On the subject of fashion, cycling-style glasses are this year's hot item, and they're turning up perched on some of the unlikeliest noses. You can't buy these on the street, though. Oakley's special one-off polka dot frames for King of the Mountains, Richard Virenque. To the man who started it all, though, being fashionable and being tasteful aren't necessarily the same thing.
There's a lot of ugly ones out there too, you know. I mean...
Naming no names.
No, but I mean, you know, you just look at the front of the peloton in a sprint, you see some all kinds of pond life coming out. It's quite funny.
Well, that's your chance of a Brico contract down the train.
I think it is.
All right, guys.
And Phil Anderson there, the only Australian to ever lead the Tour de France. What a great career he had. 20 kilometres to go for the race now, and Thierry Marie is hanging on just about, Paul. He's down to about 35 seconds, and there's the peloton not far behind.
In fact, it's tumbling as we speak, Phil, because it's now down to 25 seconds at the moment. The main, in fact, 24 seconds is the confirmation. All the teams of the sprinters are at the front trying to chase down Thierry Marie. But what could happen here is we've got 4 teams at the front chasing to try and bring back Thierry Marie. And what I think may well happen is they've chased so hard over the last 25 miles that we may well see a break situation form here.
Well, the Telecom is mainly the team who have tried to bring him back. They're thinking of their sprinter Eric Zabel, but also the Polti team have also chased very, very hard today, and they're thinking of Giovanni Lombardi and possibly Giovanni Fidanza, also a good sprinter on the Polti squad. But as Paul Sherman has said, there's been a lot of work put into this. The escape by Thierry Marie has really done a little bit of damage to them. They didn't expect to have to chase down a lone breakaway, I don't think.
Not so early and not for so long. There's Thierry Marie taking maximum points as he goes through the sprint point there. He's got to keep his courage and keep going as hard as he can, because behind him the main field are flying along now at something like 35 miles an hour.
And Oncé moving up because they have the man in the green jersey who wants the second place on the line, and look at him go. He sprints with so much confidence. He went away and got the sprint at Saint-Mont at the start of the day, clearly taking the second place here now, and I really feel as though Jamaluddin Abdou-Japarov has hoisted the white flag of surrender. And Jalabert now, there's no doubt that he's going to win that green jersey when he gets to Paris. He's won it once before, and Jamaluddin Abdou-Japarov has won it 3 times in the past. So there's the Greyhound streaking across the open pavement, and there is the pack chasing him down. Well, this is a happy venue for Davis Finney, the former American champion who's now retired from cycling. He won a stage here back in 1987. The other big sprinter, Jean-Paul Van Poppel, he won a stage in 1988. Incidentally, Jean-Paul Van Poppel would have been down to have ridden the race this year, but his team pulled out of the sport just days before the Tour started, the Le Groupement team, and Van Poppel has been waiting for a couple of years now to win a 10th stage in the Tour de France, thereby equaling the record of stage wins by a Dutch rider, which is currently held by Joop Zoetemelk, and every year he gets robbed of the chance. The pack now have the man in their sights. It's the psychological gap now. They've got somebody has to make the final decision to reach him.
They do, but Thierry Marie also has to make the final decision to desist, because he isn't going to do that at the moment. He's fighting all the way until the last minute, really prolonging his agony, hoping that maybe he'll get into the town, get into some corners, and then the riders will sit up and let him go. But you know, now that they've got so close, they're not going to let you go, Thierry.
No, but what a great competitor this man has been over the years. And you've never a Tour de France has gone by when we haven't known that Thierry Marie was taking part in it. Now he looks over his shoulder, Paul. Now he sees the sight that always sends the shivers down your back, because the riders are now right behind. But he's still not going to give up. Thierry Marie are trying to hold them off. This for him, his 11th Tour de France. And now somebody from Lampre is trying to reach him. Now this is an interesting move, because they don't have a real sprinter now. They lost their sprinter, Jean Zurada. I wonder if it might be Serpellini, because he's been very active today.
This is in fact the youngest rider in the race, Serpellini, who was a very close friend of Fabio Casartelli as well, and he's decided that he doesn't want the race to be the sprinters' race today, and he waited for just the moment when they were about to catch Thierry Marie, and he launched himself out of that main pack. And the roads around here are all very straight and very long, and you don't get a chance to get out of sight.
Pont de Pierre, 23-year-old Marco Serpellini out in front. He'll be 24 next month. So, thinking back, Laurent Fignon, 23 years of age, when he won his first Tour de France in 1983.
Well, as the riders here come over the Garonne, and the the streets of Bordeaux. It looks very much as if it's all over for Marco Serpellini, and it was an extremely good move, but the Telecom riders still at the front. They're keeping the pace high, but they've got to expect over the next couple of kilometers 1 or 2 attacks like that, and that is what they will not want to happen. They'll want to keep it all together so that when they come into the final corner here, Eric Zabel has a great chance of taking the stage victory, a second one after the one that he took in Charleroi some time ago.
And Novell anxious to mix it now because they want to prepare the way for Jamaluddin Abdou-Japarov. Here we go across the quays now in the front of the city of Bordeaux. They know exactly where they are now. A massive crowd standing on the roadside. We used to have the finish here, in fact, and it was on this little stretch road where Davis Finney from the United States won his stage. We're going, of course, in the opposite direction. We came in this way, around a little loop, and came back the opposite way to finish. But now we go straight through the city and out to the famous lake, which is on the outskirts of Bordeaux, and that's where the finish is. 8 kilometers still to ride. Well, you know, we never talk about Miguel Indurain as a sprinter, but he can finish with a very fast sprint indeed if he's motivated enough to do so. We've seen him use his sprint in World Championships when he's raced for a medal place, and he's had silver in the World Championships. So he can sprint. So if he's decided he might want to, well, who knows? But we've now got an attack being launched, and we expected these attacks to come. This is the Brasilia team who are now trying to get away quickly, and the man I'd expect is probably Perini.
In fact, it's the MG team. 2 riders from MG have gone. One's Flavio Vanzella. It looks very much as if the other one was Rolf Yerman. Now, there is a surprise. They've sat at the back all the time, let the other riders do it, and 2 of them have gone together to try and build this gap.
Well, this is Vanzella in the front. He wore the yellow jersey briefly last year when the race left to Great Britain. And Flavio hasn't been seen too much of this year. The other rider is Rolf Yerman, a former Swiss champion. And it's amazing when 2 men can get away just like that, Paul. And look at the gap they've opened.
Excellent teamwork. You know, they've gone together. They know it's too difficult to get away. A lone rider against the organisation of all the big teams there. There are 4 teams chasing behind. You know, we have Polti, Novell, Telecom, and possibly the Once would come up a little bit later on. They realised they had to go together, and I've very rarely seen that in the closing stages of a stage of the Tour de France.
So a good move as they now scamper across Bordeaux, heading out towards the lake. The gap is opening now. And as Paul has already said, the teams find organising a chase a little bit more difficult now. We're on the other side of the 2 famous mountain chains in France because they don't have the power behind the chase anymore. They don't. Some of them don't have sprinters. Some don't have the men to help the sprinters. They've left this Tour now.
But behind, you see the main field is really strung out. They're giving everything they've got to get up to these 2 men.
And there's the gap. You can see quite clearly from the helicopter position of the 2 rabbits who are trying to escape the hounds here. They keep looking over the shoulders, but they may as well just get on with it because if they're caught, they will have nothing left anyway. And there's the field now, just behind them, just on 3 kilometers left to go to the line. 2 riders from the same MG team, a team which is led by Gianni Bugno. Incidentally, Gianni Bugno lost the Amstel Gold Race, a classic race, to Ralph Yarman a couple of years back when they were on rival teams. Now they're on the same team, Paul, but it makes no difference because the field, the sprinters, are being dragged back into this race today. They refuse to give up what is their stage.
Well, that was excellent, and it looks very much as if it was Neil Stevens, the Once rider who's come up there, 3 kilometers to go. He's decided now it's time for Once to do their job for Laurent Jalabert, so he may well be looking to finally take the green jersey up to Paris, and if he gets a good placing today, he may well have won it completely.
And there is Thierry Marie. Looks as though he's calling it a day. Well, this could be the great escape in sight of the sprinters because Jesper Skibby is a good finisher in a group of 2 and Eros Poli is prepared to work with him right up to the line here. We think the Novell man joining is Vyacheslav Yekimov. He was a good candidate for victory, and I mentioned it earlier, and Yekimov starts the sprint now. Yekimov goes for the line, and Poli tries to get on his wheels. Skibby is the man in the middle here now, but Vyacheslav Yekimov, he's twice won a stage of the Tour de France before. He reached them at about 800 meters to go, but Skibby is going to get his wheel. It could be that Yekimov has gone just a little bit too soon. Jesper Skibby trying to get onto his back wheel and come out of his slipstream as Zabel and the boys try to wind up for the sprinters behind. Jalabert in green is washed away, but as they come up towards the line now, Skibby starts the sprint for the line. The sprinters are on his shoulder now. Abdou-Japarov goes off to our right with Giovanni. Jalabert is coming through as they come up to the line now, and Laurent Jalabert, Zabel comes up to the line. What a finish by the sprinters. Eric Zabel gets it on the line from Abdou-Japarov, I think. My goodness me, the sprinters took it in the end, but what a race. Just look at this for a finish. Eric Zabel is on the right in the pink, and then as Skibby dropped away from it, Giovanni Lombardi couldn't match him either. Then came the Tashkent Terror, shoulder to shoulder, his bike going in every direction, but the same way as him. And Abdu Japarov couldn't quite reach the side of Eric Zabel. The young man who celebrated his birthday in Charleroi with a victory now gets a second stage win here, and it was a clear one at that. And the sprinters made it. Eric Zabel gets his second stage win of the Tour in front of Jamaluddin Abdu Japarov and the fast-finishing Stefan Colliget. Britain's Max Chiandri was sixth. So the young German really is fast, isn't he? And Paul Sherwin had to be quick to catch up with him for a few words.
Eric, fantastic to get two stage victories at the Tour de France. Did you think going through the mountains about getting another one?
Oh, I don't know. I'm so happy that I can the second win here takes in the Tour de France, and I'm very happy. And now I won't only go to Paris.
In the heat of Bordeaux today, he takes the podium for the second time this year. It could be 3 tomorrow in Limoges. Overall, no change at all today, as the riders were all given the same time in a blanket finish. Max Chiandri still on a good ride towards Paris, while Zabel, well, he's no interest in the overall, but he certainly has in the sprints. And another visit to the podium tonight for Miguel Indurain, another yellow jersey for him. Well, you could be a winner as well if you predict the stage victor on the Champs-Élysées on Sunday. When you've made your selection, phone 0891 444477. The prize for the first correct entry drawn is a set of leaders' jerseys, the yellow, the polka dot and the green. And for those of you with long memories, a little bit of Tour tradition today at the special sprint in the late Louis Ocarnia's hometown of Copen-d'Armagnac. Madame Ocarnia, nearest the camera here, and the wife of 5-times winner Jacques Anquetil both saw Johan Museo take the £4,000 prize in the memorial sprint. So the Tour de France returned to normal today. The sprinters had their moment of success. Aren't they a sight to behold when they come home like that? They could, you know, win again tomorrow on the road to Limoges. We'll know soon. Until tomorrow night at 6:30, goodbye.
The official Channel 4 Tour de France magazine.
Yesterday, the Tour de France passed some of the most famous vineyards of the nation, but the wine of life was more important as the riders sought the cold showers offered en route. The Frenchman Thierry Marie, the lone escape expert, continued the trend of taking a shower, even as he raced to a 2 minutes lead. But it was to no avail. He was caught. The temperatures then rose again in the hottest sprint seen since the race left Charleroi. To prove it, Eric Zabel was the winner in Bordeaux. Overall, there was no change in the race, Miguel Indurain keeping his yellow jersey, Alex Zula in second place. But the race for third place is still very much on between Bjarne Riis and Laurent Jalabert. The British rider Max Chiandri, who finished 6th yesterday, is on course for a confident finish in Paris. And the final preparations underway this morning at the finish line here in Limoges. Well, we are standing on top of what I think we'd call a false flat, but it is a gentle climb for 2 kilometres. It might be just enough to fool the sprinters today. But we all felt yesterday it would be a sprint finish, and many felt the winner would be Jamaluddin Abdu Japarov. What has happened to this rider this year? He hasn't won a stage yet. Here's Paul Sherwin now to give us his opinion.
The reason Jan Raas's Novell team signed Jamaluddin Abdu Japarov this year and paid him an estimated £750,000 was because they wanted stage wins, like this one from last year by the Tashkent Terror. After all, he has won 5 stages in the past 2 years. In a sprint finish, he's always easy to spot because of his erratic sprinting style. That's why the other riders tend to give him plenty of space in which to work, as they know he feels that the whole road belongs to him. Abdu Japarov still has an awful lot of power as he uses all of his compact body, especially his strong arms and shoulders, to push and pull on the handlebars. But what he does appear to have lost is the suppleness needed to convert that power into pure speed. This is the first thing a rider tends to lose in advancing years. He may still be among the best sprinters in the world, but his force now is more effective in the slower, slightly uphill finishes. Despite dangerously dashing across the road in search of Erik Zabel on the approach to the line, from this overhead view, you can easily see the faster pedalling action of the German, who's almost 7 years younger than Abdu Japarov.
And today the race passes through the beautiful Dodon and into the Haute-Vienne, racing 166 kilometres from Montpont-Monesterol to Limoges. Just 3 small climbs along the route and 2 sprints are on the menu as well. On the rollout this morning, and the field now feeling free to dream of the Champs-Élysées on Sunday. There's still time for Jamoluddin Abdu Japarov to make amends. He has just 2 chances left, today and Sunday. And at the first sprint at Ville-Turex, Britain's Max Chiandri won here from Didier Roux and Johan Bruneel. And I think that was a sure sign that Abdu Japarov has given up his quest for his 4th green jersey in this event. And Laurent Jalabert will take that now in Paris.
It may well be that he's thinking a little bit more about the stage victory, which is eluded in this year. But the riders will have an extremely hot day again. Nearly 38 degrees centigrade is forecast for later on this afternoon. Hardly any wind at all to cool down the riders, although there will be a slight southerly wind around about 20 kilometres an hour.
And it has been an excellent day of racing today in very hot sunshine indeed. This is now the leading group of 12 riders, establishing itself around about 75, 80 kilometres from the finish, and we've still around about 40 plus kilometres to get down to the line. 12 men are in the escape, and one of them is the British rider Max Chiandri, already a stage winner this year in the finish down at Saint-Étienne. Other members of this breakaway: Lance Armstrong of the Motorola team, he's the only American up here, and then we have Rolf Yerman, Vyacheslav Yekimov, Johan Bruneel, Jean-Cyril Robin, Martin Den Bakker, Adriano Taffi, Andrea Ferrigato, Bruno Kengialta, Laurent Dufaux and Massimo Lelli. None of these riders are going to worry Miguel Indurain today, and for that reason, Paul, with a lead of around about 3:40 at the moment, it's a good break to be in, I think.
Definitely, it was a hard break to be in because there were an awful lot of attacks happening before this break actually got clear and established the lead they have at the moment. And the most dangerous man is, in fact, Bruno Kengialta, who's 17th this morning, more than half an hour behind Miguel Indurain in the overall standings, which is why, for the moment, the Banesto squad just aren't chasing.
Now, you were a little bit critical of Lance Armstrong on the road down to Revel because of his enthusiasm in that very long breakaway of almost 200 kilometres. And in the end, he was beaten in the sprint by the Ukrainian Sergei Uchikov. Well, he does seem to be riding with a little bit more sense in this breakaway.
Well, you know, he's had a hard time these last couple of days, and bear in mind that Jamokovic was away from the race yesterday. He went down there to Como to the funeral yesterday of Fabio Casartelli, flew back from Italy this morning so that he could be with Armstrong for this big stage, and that would be a great thing for Armstrong if he could take it and dedicate it to the memory of Casartelli, because, you know, Armstrong is the kind of rider who rides on emotion.
And now they're coming up towards the top of the climb of the Côte de Villeneuve, and the pressure is on, but nobody's sprinting it out at all. Ferragati it was who went over the top there, but they haven't used this as a springboard because there are too many watchful eyes in this breakaway, I think, Paul, and they're just going to keep a nice steady rhythm and share the pace for a bit longer yet.
They will do, but Armstrong, in fact, has waited and he's decided now's the time to go, and he's gone right down the right-hand side of the road as he looked across to see that there was no reaction from the main group, and that is a superb attack by the man from Plano in Texas, now residing in Austin.
So Armstrong has decided to go. He waited till he just tipped over the top of the Côte de Villeneuve. He's leaving himself a fair way to go alone. And now are the bunch going to organise themselves in the chase? Because we're looking at the main escape of the day. It's pretty safe now that this group will not be caught. And Armstrong now is trying to thin it out. This initial attack, well, if he has to go alone, I think he's quite prepared to. I don't think he'd be too worried if one or two riders reached him to give him a hand.
Definitely not. The gap over the main field there, in fact, was 5 minutes, and this is the moment when everybody was just sitting up over the top of that climb, and Lance Armstrong just looked over his shoulder, saw that everyone was disinterested, and thought, now's the time for me to have a go. If I can just surprise them and get 20 or 30 seconds, that might be just what I need.
And so Lance Armstrong of the Motorola team now rushing off into the distance, and I have to say there is no real reaction here from the back of this group. As our camera gets up to the front, the one man is trying to go clear. Looks like Laurent Dufaux.
Well, that is the thing that's going to happen now. Because there are 11 riders left in this back group, everyone now will be thinking about saving a little bit of energy for the attacks that are going to come afterwards. Armstrong caught them all napping just at the top of that climb, the Col de Portet. Superb move, and you know he's flying along at the moment. He's got it in his big gear, which is probably, for the connoisseurs, a 12-tooth sprocket at the moment, and you can see how he's actually throwing those gears round, riding at something like 35 miles an hour. We've got a chance here to get an initial time check. It's only about 12 seconds, but you can see there's no organised chase behind.
And that's what Armstrong won't know, but will hope for. And the Martin Den Bakker, there is nothing here, Paul. Den Bakker's freewheeling and saying, well, somebody else can come and do the work. It's going to take a little while, I think, to organise something here.
Well, one man who should take up the chase pretty quickly, I would think, is Rolf Jährmann, and that may well be who is at the front at the moment. There are two men from the MG squad in this breakaway. One of them is a fast finisher, Maximilian Chianri, so the Swiss rider will have to do the work and try and claw his way back to the Flying Texan.
And there is a lot of dead wood now in this breakaway as we go back up to the leader. Armstrong now pedalling on his own, leaving himself a fair way to ride, but not an impossible distance by any means. We've all seen how Lance has improved his riding against the watch on his own, and now he's got a chance to show us again that he can hold them all off.
Well, this is a man who's determined to get away from the rest of that group. There, 11 men are chasing him down at the moment. 26 kilometres to go, so that's something like round about 14 miles. It's an awful long way on your own, but Armstrong's face here has decided that that's what he wants to do. He wants to go away to Limoges and try and win on his own.
So Armstrong has flown the coupe, and we are about 26 kilometres from the finish now. Can he make it? We'll take a break.
When this rider got a flat in 1924, he could have waited for the team support car. He'd have been by the side of the road for a good 20 years, though. The days when riding the Tour meant doing it yourself. After the break. In the 20s, being an all-round cyclist meant fixing your own flats, even if you're a great rider like Ottavio Battecchia. And here he is demonstrating his lung power by blowing up his tyre without a pump. It can't have cost him much time, though. Battecchia won the 1924 Tour by 35 minutes. Nowadays, of course, there are almost as many backup cars as bikes in the race, and easily more members of the press than riders. And when they all come together on the finish line every day, the result is chaos. It's organised chaos, though, and the man doing the organising is Philippe Souge. Yellow might rule the road, but the finish line is the fiefdom of the men in the blue button-downs. Philippe Soude, having a last fag before business begins in earnest, is the man with the almost impossible job of keeping the media happy and controlling them at the same time. As time ticks down to the bunch sprint and photographers arrive every few seconds, it's Philippe's responsibility to make sure that the mass ranks almost filling the road don't endanger either themselves or the riders. He's never too stressed, though, to do a bit of bonjouring. Finally, everything's set. Once the race is safely over, Philippe starts his second job, chaperoning the stars to their home broadcasters. Philippe is powerful enough to go anywhere he likes, as we discovered when we temporarily lost him. Back at the commentary tribune, Philippe is delivering Eric Zabel to German television. And as soon as that's done, he's thinking ahead to his next job.
Indurain va venir à la TVE. Oui, oui, y a pas de problème. Pardon. Il est passé. Pardon.
So now Mig's safely delivered. Time to deal with a couple of quick technical questions. He's back to his role as Eric Zabel's TV tour guide. Interview number 2 over, it's off to the press conference wagon. Philippe's still cool, but his shirt is beginning to show the strain.
Beep. We've got to go quick to the TV. The show will be finished.
Final interview stop is the French Live post-race show. Zabel makes it just in time.
It's okay.
A bit more bonjouring backstage, and Philippe is almost ready for his final chore of the day, taking Eric to the doctors for his drug test appointment. There's one last delay for autographs. Then, with Zabel safely inside and doing yet another interview on the phone, Philippe is finally free to head back to the hotel, change his shirt, and get ready to face the whole process again tomorrow.
Well, thanks, Gary, but I'll tell you what, Philippe Soude pays us a lot of, gives us a lot of help over the years on the Tour de France. We're very indebted to him. We're now back with the man who is setting the pace, though, on the Tour de France today, and this is Lance Armstrong. He's now inside 6 miles from the finish. He broke away. He's built a lead of about 55 seconds. The last we saw, there were 2 chasing riders after him from this original break of 12. Max Chiandri, the British rider, has tried, but he's missed the chase at the moment. It's Martin Den Bakker in the front here as they go under 10 kilometres to go, and behind him is Andrea Tappi. 2 riders chasing, and the gap at 55 seconds. The big field, by the way, is now 6¼ minutes behind.
Well, they're resigned, I think, to the fact that these 12 riders who escaped early on in the stage are going to take the first 12 places, but the man doing a great job at the front, Lance Armstrong. And this is the group of 9 riders that are left chasing the 3 men in front, going under the 10-kilometre banner 6 miles to go for these riders too. But still, I can't understand the lack of work by the MG squad, because Chiandri is losing a chance of winning the stage here.
Well, there's news which I think you'll like to see. Lance Armstrong, to our right, is the green board, which we often call the blackboard, is telling him it's 55 seconds to the 2 chasers and more than a minute now back to the other 9 riders in that bunch. The peloton, we can forget today. All of the favourites are staying together, that's for sure now. The only trouble is, Paul, that the approach to the finish, we get into the ripples around the Limoges area here, and it is a hard climb to the finish if you're at full pace like Armstrong has been for so long.
But when you've been at the front of the race for 30 kilometres on your own, it's a very long climb up to the finish line. It's 2 kilometres. It doesn't look very much, especially in the car. You don't have to change gear very much. But when you've been pounding that big gear for 18 miles, Armstrong is really going to suffer to the top of this climb. But behind, looking at these chasing group, they really aren't decided as to whether or not they should chase. And I think the advantage Armstrong has is the riders in this group are all possible winners. A lot of them won stages in the Tour de France, and they don't want to give a chance to somebody else.
Well, Armstrong is clear. The group, by the way, is only 10 seconds behind the 2 pursuers now, so I think they're going to be swept up, and they'll be then all together in pursuit of Armstrong once again. Here they are. Martin Den Bakker of the TVM team, former amateur champion of Holland, and Andrea Tappi.
Well, Martin Den Bakker really has come along over the last couple of years. We said a couple of times he did finish second in the Tour de l'Avenir last year, having held the yellow jersey all the way through until the final stage when it came to the time trial, and he lost it there. They're inside the town of Limoges now, and it won't be very long before we get another time check on Lance Armstrong, who last time check was 1 minute and 15 seconds clear. But the 2 riders in between really aren't making any headway on this chasing group now.
But in fact, the chasing group themselves, led by Ferrigati at the moment, seem to have slowed down a little bit as well. Max Chiandri wants the others to come through and do some of the work, but they're not organised now. Johan Brunel in the pink hasn't really bothered to contribute much at all to this breakaway. And Lely, who's second from the back of this line, well, he's former amateur champion of Holland. And Andrea Tappi.
Well, Martin Den Bakker really has come along over the last couple of years. We said a couple of times he did finish second in the Tour de l'Avenir last year, having held the yellow jersey all the way through until the final stage when it came to the time trial, and he lost it there. They're inside the town of Limoges now, and it won't be very long before we get another time check on Lance Armstrong, who last time check was 1 minute and 15 seconds clear. But the 2 riders in between really aren't making any headway on this chasing group now.
But in fact, the chasing group themselves, led by Ferrigati at the moment, seem to have slowed down a little bit as well. Max Chiandri wants the others to come through and do some of the work, but they're not organised now. Johan Brunel in the pink hasn't really bothered to contribute much at all to this breakaway. And Lely, who's second from the back of this line, well, he seems to have lost a little bit of enthusiasm as well. So, and I think, you know, Paul, I'm beginning to feel he might just do it.
I think so. The latest check over the race radio is 1 minute over the 2 chasers, 1 minute 10 over the remainder of that group that he was with. But you get a chance here to look at Lance Armstrong's position as we flick back to the 2 chasers. In fact, he has changed. If we go back to him, you'll see he's much more powerful. He's a lot further back on his saddle, and he looks more aerodynamic than he used to.
Andrea Tappi having an excellent season on Tony Rominger's Mapei team. But I think he missed the boat here. He probably was quite upset when he saw Armstrong go, but he should have been watching for it. Armstrong didn't attack where everybody thought he would going up the climb. When they were all relaxing and turning off on the top of the climb, he flew down the road and was out of sight before they really got their thoughts together. And that was a fine piece of tactic.
An excellent move. He waited and looked across. Everybody had just ridden up that climb. I think all these riders had expected an attack to come on that climb, and when they got to the top, they let out a big sigh of relief. It hadn't come, and that is the moment that Armstrong decided to make his move, when they were all just leaning for their bottles, just looking for a drink, and bang, there he was, and the gap was immediate.
Well, Armstrong is clear. The group, by the way, is only 10 seconds behind the two pursuers now, so I think they're going to be swept up, and they'll be then all together in pursuit of Armstrong once again. Here they are. Martin Den Bakker of the TVM team, former amateur champion of Holland, and Andrea Tappi.
Well, Martin Den Bakker really has come along over the last couple of years. We said a couple of times he did finish second in the Tour de l'Avenir last year, having held the yellow jersey all the way through until the final stage when it came to the time trial, and he lost it there. They're inside the town of Limoges now, and it won't be very long before we get another time check on Lance Armstrong, who last time check was 1 minute and 15 seconds clear, but the two riders in between really aren't making any headway on this chasing group now.
Well, in fact, the chasing group themselves, led by Ferrigati at the moment, seem to have slowed down a little bit as well. Max Chiandri wants the others to come through and do some of the work, but they're not organised now. Johan Brunel in the pink hasn't really bothered to contribute much at all to this breakaway. And Lely, who's second from the back of this line, well, he seems to have lost a little bit of enthusiasm as well. So this is all airing well for Lance Armstrong. His hat has already gone into the wind now. He's down to hanging on and getting the stage win. And I think, you know, Paul, I'm beginning to feel he might just do it.
I think so. The latest check over the race radio is 1 minute over the two chasers, 1 minute 10 over the remainder of that group that he was with. But you get a chance here to look at Lance Armstrong's position as we flick back to the two chasers. In fact, he has changed. If we go back to him, you'll see he's much more powerful. He's a lot further back on his saddle, and he looks more aerodynamic than he used to.
Armstrong still tapping out the rhythm, still hanging on in there and still holding on. He's a kilometre in front of the pursuers.
Well, that kilometre is probably something like 1 minute 10 seconds on the road like this, because these riders are doing approximately 35 miles an hour at the moment, and Armstrong still not weakening, still finding the energy to keep pushing those pedals around. He's been at the front now for something like 16 miles, just 2 miles to go, and he's going to take a wonderful stage victory. He'll have a lot of time to think this time. He didn't have to try and out-sprint anybody else. He's on his own, and you can see on his left shoulder there the black band, which is in respect for Fabio Casartelli, who passed away just a couple of days ago.
Armstrong dodging the straw bales, but now not even these two surely can close a kilometre on the American rider in the distance that remains to the finish. The only thing that gives us a little slight concern is the 2 kilometre drag up to the finishing line, but I don't think Lance, when he gets inside that 2 kilometre banner, is going to be caught by anybody except his team car.
Looking at the way these two riders are going, you know, they've been riding well together, but they don't have the same conviction. As they get closer to the finish, they will start to think about the second place, and that is when the impetus will go out of their chase, although they do know there are 9 men chasing them behind. Armstrong pegging these kilometres every few minutes now. That is going to be 3 kilometres to go. That's not very much more than 1.5 miles for the man at the front, and the road starts to go up a little bit now. He gets out of the saddle, he looks for the gear, he's fighting a lot, he's getting every last little bit of his energy out. Look at him now, out of the saddle, pumping those pedals around because he feels this stage victory. He wants this stage victory, and you know, Phil, he's going to get it.
He is now, Paul, that is for sure. The main field, by the way, we don't have much interest in them today, is now 7 minutes behind. But this is the man that we are going to talk about, and this is the man that we are going to appreciate today, because Lance Armstrong, his team has known every emotion in this Tour de France, and now we're going to remember this for a very happy one.
Most definitely, he knows he's got the victory there. A little professional move as he pulls up the zip. He's sitting down. He's not dying at all on this climb. He's giving everything he's got. He's forcing himself. He's getting every last little bit of energy back. He knows that he's got the gap. He knows he's got the stage victory. Very soon he'll see that banner, which indicates about 400 metres to go, and he'll be able to savour what I think for him will be one of the sweetest victories of his career so far.
It'll be very special for everyone on the Motorola team tonight. Now, I was about to say, he usually conducts the orchestra when he wins, and this looks like the start of it. Lance Armstrong isn't going to worry about time gains today. He's just going to worry about the victory for himself, for Team Motorola, and for Fabio Casartelli. Lance Armstrong now looks to the skies as he comes home. He dedicates this stage to the teammate, Fabio Casartelli. This one, Fabio, is for you. So Armstrong comes to the line, on what for him will be a very special, poignant moment. Feregati comes up, he broke away, and he was the strongest of the rest of that group. He was up there in the sprint yesterday. Now he's showing he can stay the distance as well, and Feregato takes second place. And Vyacheslav Yekimov stomps away to take third place on the line from Laurent Dufaux and Martin Denbacker as they come up towards the finish there. And then I think I said Martin Dufaux there, but it was his teammate Jean-Cyril Robin who hung on for the place. This is Lely. Almost a minute has ticked by now. And let's go immediately to Paul Sherwin, who is with Lance Armstrong.
Lance, at the finish line there, you looked up at the skies. What were you thinking about?
Oh, well, there's no question what's been on our mind for the past 3 days, and I think it's been on everybody's mind. And not that we set out to win the bike race today. We only meant to be here and try to recover it. But certainly Fabio was motivating me today, and I thought of him every second. It was super because all day the people on the side of the road never let me forget. Not that I was going to forget, but the people were very supportive, and there wasn't a minute that went by that I didn't hear poor Fabio.
You know, you came to this Tour de France, you wanted two things before you went away. You wanted to finish to get to Paris, and you wanted to take a stage of victory. You've almost succeeded in doing both.
Well, we're almost finished, which is nice, and certainly I wanted to win the stage. I was close one day, but came up short, and then we had the tragedy, and I didn't think that it was going to happen because I was too devastated. Everybody was devastated, and my mind was in another place. It all came together today.
Well done, Lance. Understandably a little emotional in that interview with Paul Sherwin. This is now the arrival of the main field, and look at the clock, almost 8 minutes has gone by. All of the men that matter on the overall leaderboard are safely home in this bunch. They haven't had a tough day today. Laurent Brochard bringing them clear across the line. So Motorola get their win. Lance Armstrong taking the honours today ahead of Andrea Feregato and Vyacheslav Yekimov bringing in the small chase group. In 10th place, Max Chiandri of Great Britain. Armstrong on the podium tonight, and at last a smile beginning to appear on the Texan's face. The overall situation, again among the leaders, hasn't changed tonight. We go to the time trial tomorrow with Miguel Indurain, Alex Zula and Bjarne Riis in that order. But look at the other times here. There will be a shift in the order of this classification tomorrow, I'm sure of that. And another yellow jersey for Miguel Indurain tonight. Always a long sleeve one note, even when the weather's as warm as this. He certainly makes sure he doesn't catch cold. And do have a go at our competition to guess Sunday's winner in Paris when the race ends on the Champs-Élysées. Give your selection to our dedicated phone number, which is 0891 444477. And you could win a set of leaders' jerseys. And the victory tonight by Lance Armstrong was well taken and well merited. This was not a present from the riders in the Tour de France. Yet, after he crossed the finishing line, there were understandably tears from him and from his team manager Jim Okowitz. The affection shown by the organisation of the Tour de France was genuine, and so too was the congratulations from the riders in this race. Well, tomorrow is the final time trial in the Tour de France. Now, Bjarne Riis came close last time he clashed with Miguel Indurain. I wonder if he'll beat him this time. Tomorrow we're going to see a great race. Do join us tomorrow night. Until then, goodbye. Yesterday, the Tour de France cruised through the Dordogne and the Haute-Vienne areas of France as the 117 survivors headed towards Limoges. 30 kilometres from the finish, the American Lance Armstrong broke clear of a leading group of 12 and reached speeds of 40 miles an hour. He was on an emotional roller coaster ride. At the finish, Armstrong looked to the heavens. This was his way of remembering Fabio Casartelli, his departed teammate. And indeed, Lance Armstrong driven home yesterday by forces well outside of the Tour. Now, for those of you who watched our programme last night, we do apologise for the slight technical problems we experienced, and I hope it didn't spoil your enjoyment of the show too much. We've now moved to the side of Lake de Fissivière, the final showdown, the last time trial of this year's race, and as you can see, it's raining. It's rather reminiscent of the opening prologue race, and you know the strange result we got there. This is the overall classification today. Miguel Indurain has a very nice buffer ahead of Alex Zula of just over 2.5 minutes. But the race for third place, well, it's close. Bjorn Ries is trying now for the best ever finish by a Danish rider, and Laurent Jalabert too would like a place on the podium in Paris. If we're looking for an outsider to win today in the time trial, why not Tony Rominger, who started this race overall as a pre-race favourite with Miguel Indurain, but since then he has disappointed. Rominger could ride well today, and a good ride by him could bring him up to 6th place overall in Paris tomorrow. So the final phase is about to begin. The pack will make its final shuffle. The time trial is called the Race of Truth. It's also called And the route today is the undulations around the Lac de Fissivière, a very beautiful spot indeed. And it's not a flat course. It starts at around 660 metres above sea level. It finishes about 3 kilometres away after doing a big circle from where it starts, and it's just over 700 metres at the line. And the first man to start today, Bruno Cornier, riding in his 10th Tour de France. He is the last man in this year's race. And as Cornier reaches the finish, a time for him of 1 hour, 6 minutes and 19 seconds for the Lanterne Rouge. That has set the standard for the day. And the only British survivor of this year's Tour de France, Max Chiandri, riding his time trial today towards the finish in Paris. Tomorrow he will finish in a very respectable position indeed. And here is the arrival now of Max Chiandri. It's been a very good tour for Max indeed, because of course he won his stage down at Saint-Etienne. He was in the breakaway again yesterday when they were outwitted by Lance Armstrong, and it's going to be a reasonable time indeed. 1:4:22, 18th place at the moment. Now here is Tony Rominger out on the course at kilometre number 10, that's 6 miles. He's set the best time there, of course all the men behind him still to reach that point, but he went through 10 kilometres in 13 minutes and 8 seconds, 4 seconds better than Laurent Madouas, who started 3 minutes in front of him.
And information coming over the radio at the moment, he's already 26 seconds faster than Richard Virenque, so he may well be walking into a top 10 place tonight, but I think he's looking a little bit higher. It may well even be that he'd like to get the stage victory today.
Well, Rominger has done it before over Miguel Indurain. He's beaten him before in a time trial 2 years ago, in fact, and I wonder now if he can swing the tables. The roads are drying out for the late starters, although the conditions are still overcast. I don't think we're going to get any more rain for the rest of the race today. So while Tony Rominger blazes the trail through the time checks, so up the road, he's racing now towards the 22 kilometres time check. Here back in the start house is Laurent Jalabert. I think he never dreamt he would be up into 4th place overall at this stage.
Definitely not, but he's also only 27 seconds off 3rd spot, which would be great for him, a green jersey and a place on the podium in Paris.
And Tony Rominger, Paul, well, look at this, though. He really is setting his rhythm today. I think he's come here to try and do his very, very best and not just ride out this tour.
Well, I think he's looking at the stage victory, you know, because that would save the Tour de France for him. He's had an awful time, I think, in the mountains with the heat. It really hasn't been ideal for him. That first time trial was in very hot conditions. Today, it's slightly cooler, and that may well tilt the balance in his favour.
Now then, Paul, Bjorn Ries, he's carried that jersey as champion of Denmark with great pride in this Tour de France, hasn't he?
He has. He really has risen to the occasion this year. And in fact, just a little earlier, talking to some colleagues from the Danish television, they think he's favourite for today.
Richard Virenque carrying that number 51, the winner of the King of the Mountains for a second year. He's gone through the early checks among the leaders, but not as quick as Laurent Madouas is progressing on this course, because at the second check he is leading there now. He's just gone 4 seconds better than Alvaro Mejia. And the last few deep breaths for Alex Zülle, second overall since that great ride in the Alps. He's on his way. He started off, Paul, using a very big gear there.
Definitely, he wasn't too worried about getting asphyxiated in the first kilometre, but the man out on the road at the moment trying to conserve his place in the top 10 is number 51, Richard Virenque. He's already won the King of the Mountains competition, but if he can just do a performance today, that'll keep him up there.
Now, Tony Rominger. There's a little bit of a surprise out on the course. He won't know it, but at the 10-kilometre check, Escartine has gone through 7 seconds quicker than Rominger. Rominger now coming up to the second check at 22 seconds, aiming at Laurent Madouas' time, best time so far. He's well inside Laurent Madouas, and in fact 49 seconds to the good here for Tony Rominger, but it's Escartine behind him who is setting even quicker times, especially at the first check.
Superb ride by Escartine there, but you know the time of the time trial is taken at the end, and you have to dose your effort all the way until you get there. And a lot of riders doing the fast times early on so far have actually slowed down a little bit towards the end, so maybe Rominger could come up with the goods. He is a specialist at this kind of event.
And so Miguel Indurain now looks out at the rest of the Tour de France. They've all gone as usual in the last time trial before him. The last man to go yet again, 3 minutes after Alex Zülle. A few final deep breaths, Paul, and then we'll see.
Well, Indurain took the time this morning in the cold weather and the wet to go and look at the course to find out what it was like. It's a tough course. It's a very technical course with lots of up and downs and lots of corners, but 1 second and he's off.
So Miguel Indurain not using his special bite, the sword, today. The conditions, though, have dried out, and Indurain now will see what he can do. And there's a marvellous crowd here spread right around the course today. The situation at 10 kilometres at the moment, Escartine has set the best time there. Still all of the real stars of the Tour de France to go through, though. His time is 13 minutes and 1 second. Further ahead of Escartine, the best time at 22 kilometres is Tony Rominger with 27 minutes and 56 seconds. And the best time in at the finish is Thierry Marie with 1 hour, 1 minute and 11 seconds. I wonder if Miguel Indurain will reshape all of that. We'll take a break.
L'Activité has hosted 2 previous time trials in the Tour. They turned out to be the stages that bracketed Greg LeMond's career. See you in a couple of minutes. In 1985, the Tour came to L'Activité for the first time. The result was the first ever stage win by an American. Greg LeMond giving out a warning for the future to his rival and team leader, Bernard Hinault.
In '85, first time trial lasted about 2.5 minutes to Hinault, and I was devastated because I thought I was maybe even going to win the Tour that year. And it set me off in a psychological deficit. I mean, I was always worried about, like, Hinault was that much better than me. It really did affect me. And all of a sudden I saw his weakness, and then last week I was a totally different rider, and I beat him by 8 seconds.
When the race returned to L'Activité 5 years later, LeMond was chasing his third, and as it turned out, last Tour de France victory. It was the day before Paris, and he needed to beat the race leader Claudio Chiappucci to take the yellow jersey for the first time in that year's Tour.
1990, I did that time trial, and it was kind of, I was so nervous. All I did was race against Chiappucci. I didn't even think about the stage win. I was so nervous because I had such a bad year that year, and that was the only race I was racing well in, so I didn't want to lose it.
Well, of course he didn't, and that ride around the lake in 1990 really brought Greg LeMond's career full circle, winning his final Tour in the place where he took his first ever stage win on the Tour de France. And barring any mishaps, L'Activité should host another piece of history-making today, as Miguel Indurain, who of course has won every Tour since LeMond, puts his 5th in a row beyond reasonable doubt.
And Indurain on the far side of the lake at the moment from the finishing line, looking as smooth as he's ever looked in a time trial now, Paul. I think this one is for him.
I think it is, but strangely enough, I feel that his position is a lot better on this rather more normal bicycle than the Espada. He looks comfortable. He looks like the old Miguel Indurain. His legs are going round at that high rhythm that has won him so many time trials in the past, and I think he's reverted to that because he just didn't feel too comfortable on the Espada.
And now here is the face of Bjarne Riis, as now he chases the next time check here at 22 kilometres. He's also chasing, of course, to keep level now with Laurent Jalabert and conserve his 3rd place overall in the Tour de France.
Well, this man really has turned the tables, I think, during the Tour de France this year. Look at that time there. He's going to go through 16 seconds better than Tony Rominger at the moment. The best time, 27 minutes and 40 seconds.
So Rees again is finding the ability in the time trial, taking the lead at 22 kilometres. Now, as we watch the pictures here of Laurent Jalabert, we can tell you that, in fact, Tony Rominger, not too far from the finishing line, has punctured and lost an estimated 30 seconds in what would probably have been a bike change. That was a lot of time to lose.
That's an awful lot of time to lose, you know, but Tony Rominger does seem to have awfully bad luck when it comes to the time trial. He punctured a couple of years ago and it looked as if he was going to rival Miguel Indurain, but I still think when he gets here, he will have the best time check, because at the last check, he was 1 minute 49 seconds ahead of Alvaro Mejia, while here, number 61 is trying to conserve his 4th place.
And this is Alex Zülle now, the first chance we've had to see him out on the course, and what an invidious position he has, starting 3 minutes in front of Miguel Indurain. But he's living up to his reputation as a good time trialist. He's rivaling the time of Ivan Gotti, who's excelling himself today, goes through 3rd, 19 seconds down. Now throwing his bike rather like the sprinter Jamaluddin Abdou-Japarov. That's Bjorn Rees down there. This is the situation at the 22-kilometre point. All riders are now through, and the leader Miguel Indurain by 27 seconds.
Coming up to the line now, 400 metres to go for Tony Rominger, and it's going to be an excellent ride, you know, despite the fact that he had a puncture a little while ago. Look at that, he's well inside the hour.
And this despite an estimated 30 seconds lost for a bike change, and what a shame for him, because this is a marvellous time. To break the hour on this course is incredible, as Tony Rominger comes up to the line, the world hour record holder on the track. Best time, 58 minutes 39 seconds. Well, on the left, Laurent Jalabert. The other rider is Bjorn Rees. This morning they started 27 seconds apart. Now Bjorn Rees has increased that lead to 1 minute and 16 seconds. So it does look now as though the Danish rider is going to climb onto that podium tomorrow in Paris in 3rd place. What a great result for him.
Absolutely fantastic. You know, for me, Laurent Jalabert has done the ride of this year's Tour de France. He's going to finish 4th. That's the position that Sean Kelly finished in when he was the green jersey in the Tour de France as well. And he's done, to me, the same kind of ride as Kelly.
Well, this is now Miguel Indurain in the 33-kilometre, 0.5-kilometre check zone. We'll wait to see what the clock tells us, but I'm sure it's the best time now. Alex Zülle's come through behind Rominger and Rees. We didn't see him, but he's 41 seconds behind Bjorn Rees, and Indurain's time is now in 39 minutes and 6 seconds for Miguel Indurain, and that puts him 29 seconds ahead of Bjorn Rees, 43 seconds in front of Tony Rominger, and 1 minute and 10 seconds ahead of the second man overall, Alex Zülle. And there's the confirmation of that check at 33.5 kilometres. Bjorn Rees going under the 10 kilometres to go banner here, and still riding very, very strongly indeed, and giving us some indication too that he may now be coming level with Miguel Indurain in speed, and he may claw back a little bit of time.
Well, he will have to do it over the last couple of kilometres. At the last check there, 40.5 kilometres, Rees has just gone through 3 seconds faster than Tony Rominger, 49 minutes and 36 seconds. So, in fact, he's slowing down a little bit vis-a-vis to the time of Tony Rominger. So the last part of this time trial is very, very difficult.
Now, a rider we talked about as a big surprise when he snatched the yellow jersey and then lost it to Bjorn Rees in Belgium, Ivan Gotti coming up. Well, his time trials have improved greatly and the checks have been good. He's been right up amongst the leaders. He was 3rd best time at 40.5 kilometres, and he's going to beat the hour now for the full distance today, which is 46.5 kilometres, or just on 29 miles. And to beat 29 miles in the hour on a course like this is superb. Gotti comes home at the moment with the 2nd best time, 59 minutes 15 seconds. And there is Alex Zülle's time at 40.5 kilometres, 48 seconds behind. That puts him 3rd best at the moment, with Indurain still to come through that 40.5 kilometre point. The best time, Bjorn Rees, 49.36, followed by Tony Rominger, and then Alex Zülle, Ivan Gotti, and Laurent Jalabert. Well, if Laurent Jalabert comes in and the time checks stay as they are, it'll be an eventual 6th place overall on the day for Jalabert, and that's really a great ride for a man we once used to always think of as a sprinter. Melchior Maris is the target time now. He's in 4th place at the moment with 59 minutes 51. There at the top of the screen is the time of the race leader, Tony Rominger. Jalabert finishes now 4th best for the time being at least, 59.32. Now, just about 2.5 kilometres out is Bjarne Riis out on the road, and we can tell you now that Miguel Indurain behind him has passed through the 40-kilometre point with the best time, now 41 seconds quicker than Bjarne Riis and 44 seconds better than Tony Rominger. The 30 seconds we estimated the loss of Rominger with that flat tyre, Paul, is now looking very crucial, isn't it?
Extremely over these last few kilometres. Tony Rominger never does seem to have a great deal of luck in the time trials. This is the overall standings as it looks at the moment. Miguel Indurain with a 4 minutes 15-second lead over Alex Zuller, and Bjarne Riis obviously in 3rd place.
And Ivan Gotti no longer a surprise. He's ridden a solid Tour de France since he wore the yellow jersey for a couple of days. And so the gaps have opened, Paul, but at the end of the day it doesn't look as though we're going to see a big change in the overall situation near the top at least. Now Bjarne Riis coming in, his face a picture as well. He drives up towards the line. This is the man who nearly turned the tables on Miguel Indurain almost 3 weeks ago in the centre of Belgium when he lost the time trial by just 12 seconds in the end. Well, there's going to be a bigger gap now, but for the time being at least, he's going to be on the leaderboard as the #1 man. Bjarne Riis has been a real part of this Tour de France this year, and he's going now to Paris tomorrow with the best ever finish by a Dane. Riis comes up to the line, the time to beat that of Tony Rominger. Riis beats it, 58.22. It's fair to say he wouldn't have done if Rominger hadn't punctured, but he has, and that's all that counts.
Bjarne Riis coming up to the line here. What an incredibly improved rider. You can see up to the line. He's concentrating completely on the time trial. He thought today that he would come out and beat Miguel Indurain. One last look to see where the line is. He's going to finish there with the best time today. What a superb ride by this man.
And now we go back to Alex Zuller. He's in 2 kilometres to go now. This is the situation of 46.5 kilometres covered, the finishing line. Riis is now in with 58.22. Rominger is in 2nd place. In 3rd place, Ivan Gotti, followed by Fernando Escartin and Laurent Jalabert. They're the top 5, but I think the next 2 men in will reshuffle that.
You can see how hard it is here on this final few kilometres. Every time he tries to sit down, this man, Alex Zuller, number 69 on the Once squad, has been getting back out of the saddle again because he just can't keep the rhythm going. It's such a final, difficult time trial to get over. In fact, it was Greg LeMond who came back here over this same part of the course just to beat his team leader at the time, Bernard Hinault, by 5 seconds.
So he's sitting there now, just hoping this time trial will come to a quick end, but there's no doubt that Alex Zuller has now matured into a great rider in the Tour de France. He lost the Tour of Switzerland this year when it seemed cut and dried after a marvellous ride through the mountains in Switzerland by the Russian rider Pavel Tonkov, who was in this race and has since retired. But Zuller is disappointed at losing his home tour. He came here as a man to take on Miguel Indurain. There he is, Miguel Indurain. I can't imagine how you must feel when you start 3 minutes ahead of the renowned time trialist, the best man in the world when he races alone. And there he is, Miguel Indurain. And Zuller has been conceding time all of the way. 1 minute and 10 seconds he lost by 33.5 kilometres. But Big Mig has not had the satisfaction at all of getting Zuller in his sights today.
Definitely, but looking at this man's style, it is quite incredible. He's still got the same rhythm as he had at the start. It's as if somebody's sitting in the back of the team car with a metronome and just counting out the pedal revs to him, because he's still keeping his revolutions high. He's still flying along in this time trial, and I think he'll be an extremely happy man tonight because, you know, he was beaten in the final time trial last year, and he regards this time trial as his own domain.
He passes under the 2 kilometres to go banner, which means he's not that far behind Alex Zuller now, because Zuller will be inside his last kilometre for sure. But he has really closed down on this course. A professional road racing cyclist's dream, because in fact it's a tortuous course. It is a very difficult race route, and the crowds also don't allow you to see too much of it.
Well, Alex Zuller now coming into the last kilometres, not very much longer that he's going to have to suffer to find whether he can stay in the top 3 positions of the Tour de France at the moment. There wasn't a great deal of danger in that this morning because Bjarne Riis was a long way behind him, but I did feel that Alex Zülle may come out and rival those three riders because many put him down as a top favourite for today's time trial, but you know, Miguel Indurain still is the master of the time trial.
And Alex Zülle is going to finish second best in this year's Tour de France, and how many of us would love to be second in the hardest race in the world? And Alex Zülle is going to claim that place now with this performance as he makes the short right and the sprint up to the line. It's not going to be the best time of the day either at the finish now, because there'll be quicker times already in. Ries and Rominger should be quicker unless Alex has gone really well over the last 5 kilometres. But there we have it on the screen. The answer is it won't beat Bjarne Ries or Tony Rominger, and I don't think it's going to beat Ivan Gotti. So Ivan Gotti's done a tremendous ride. Zülle has lost a place on the closing kilometres, and he comes up the line with what will be fifth for the moment and 6th by the end of this day.
Well, he's given everything he wanted to and everything he could in that time trial, and I'm very surprised that he faded towards the end as we take a chance here to look at Alex Zülle coming up to the line. This is a very difficult last kilometre to judge because it's all the way uphill, and it's exactly where Bernardino cracked on the final of the time trial here in 1985 when he was beaten by his teammate Greg LeMond. But Zülle comes over the line and he'll be second in the Tour de France. But out on the course, the yellow jersey firmly on the shoulders of Miguel Indurain.
And now Miguel Indurain is only left on the course alone now. He's bringing home his Tour de France for a 5th year in succession. There's no doubt now this man will win the race tomorrow in Paris. The riders have given up all their challenge. They will take him home tomorrow as once again their conqueror. Miguel Indurain wins yet another time trial in the Tour de France. He's still to come out and win a road race during his period as a winner of this race. But right now, let us watch the finest man in the world of cycling at work again today. And look at the time on the right there as he comes in 57 minutes and 34 seconds. Who else could be allowed to win the Tour de France other than this magnificent athlete? And there is the face of Miguel Indurain. He hurts himself to the absolute limit because all he wants to do every year is win this race. Indurain inside 58 minutes. An incredible performance on a course like this with hardly a flat road, yet he pedals in excess of 30 miles an hour. And yet another marvellous time trial ride by Miguel Indurain. His time today, 57 minutes, 34 seconds, was 48 seconds better than Bjarne Ries and 1 minute and 5 seconds ahead of Tony Rominger, despite Rominger's puncture. Of the other men among the leaderboard, Laurent Jalabert, he finished in 7th place, 1 minute and 58 seconds behind Miguel today. And further down the field was our Max Chiandri. And Miguel Indurain, when he finished, gave us the impression it was just another day at the office as he casually hands his bike in and then walks towards the winner's podium, as if anybody could do it. The last leader's jersey for Big Mig this year. Tomorrow he will exchange it on the Champs-Élysées for a winner's. Overall, we now have the Big Mig margins. Alex Zülle is second, 4 minutes 35 seconds back. Ries is third at 6:47. Laurent Jalabert is fourth at 8:24. But overall, the top 7 riders didn't alter position. The man who did gain most was Tony Rominger. He moved up from 11th to 8th. And don't forget, it's the last chance for you to guess the winner of tomorrow's stage on the Champs-Élysées. It should be a race for the sprinters, of course. Now, we've still got Abdou Japarov, Eric Zabel, Giovanni Lombardi, and, of course, Laurent Jalabert. But then there are others too. When you've made your selection, phone your choice to 0891 444477, and you must do so before 10 o'clock tomorrow morning when the lines will close. The first prize will be a set of leaders' jerseys. That of Miguel Indurain in yellow, Laurent Jalabert the green, and the polka dot jersey of Richard Virenque. So all that remains now are for the riders to take the train up to the outskirts of Paris tomorrow and then bring Miguel Indurain onto the Champs-Élysées, where he will win the final yellow jersey for a 5th successive year, and that will be a record. Enjoy the scene with us in Paris tomorrow. We'll be with you at 6:45. Until then, goodbye. The last day of the Tour de France began with a 400 kilometres train journey to the town of Sainte-Geneviève-des-Bois, south of Paris. The last start town for Miguel Indurain before he takes his place in history as the first man to win 5 tours in a row. After 3 weeks, the 117 survivors are set now to ride into Paris, the city where the race has ended ever since inception in 1903. And we've made it too, as the Champs-Élysées now prepares to welcome the great Spanish champion Miguel Indurain, the only rider to pull on the final maillot jaune since 1991. It's a perfect day here in the city to welcome the rider who has now truly become one of the great Tour men. He began his 5th successive route to victory with less panache than normal when the torrential rain in Saint-Brieuc caused him to reduce the risk and finish an uncharacteristic 35th. He was 31 seconds behind the day's winner in the prologue, Jackie Giron. For the next week, Indurain often stayed near the front of the race but never attacked. He preferred to allow others to enjoy their tour. His, he said, began in the 2nd week. However, he shocked the race when, on the eve of the first long time trial, he broke clear with the Belgian Johan Bruneel. Although he lost the sprint in Liège, he had stolen a march and was now up to 2nd overall and poised for the usual big lead after the time trial. That never happened when he won by only 12 seconds, but he did win, and he did get the yellow jersey. He was ahead of Bjarne Riis of Denmark by just 23 seconds as the race transferred to the Alps. Once there, his rivals attacked him. On the road to La Plagne, Alex Zülle went off on a lone adventure. Indurain was forced to chase him alone, 2 minutes behind. He finished 2nd, and his lead was now almost 2.5 minutes over Zülle. Next day, Marco Pantani, the Italian climber, made his move, and again Big Mick did most of the work behind to again finish 2nd. His lead stayed at 2 minutes 27 seconds. The Alps had shown him to be stronger than most. He then kept away from trouble across the bottom of France, and then in the Pyrenees, he was ready once more to fend off the attacks from Pantani. On the road to Guzeneige, the Italian went for a long one to gain time. So Indurain chased again, and this time he finished 3rd on the stage. His lead was now 2 minutes 46 seconds over Zülle, and with the stage to Pau neutralised by the tragedy, there was no further challenge to Indurain. He confirmed in the time trial around the lake at the Civière that he was once more the best rider in a Tour de France, leaving just today's arrival on the Champs-Élysées to enjoy. He now becomes the first rider to win the Tour 5 times in a row. And Miguel Indurain at the start this morning, as always, the centre of attention, but today seemingly more popular than ever. The last route they face, 155 kilometres. If they stick to tradition, then they'll arrive on the Champs-Élysées all together. Then they face 8 circuits of the Champs-Élysées. Just 115 riders have survived this very difficult tour, the smallest number, in fact, since Laurent Fignon won the race 12 years ago. And the riders who carry the leaders' jerseys, Miguel Indurain in yellow, of course, Laurent Jalabert, the green, and Richard Virenque is in the polka dot jersey as the winner of the King of the Mountains competition. But every rider to leave for Paris today thoroughly deserve congratulations.
And they'll be happy too, because the rain clouds of yesterday have disappeared. It's sunshine all the way to the Champs-Élysées, with a high of 25 degrees Celsius this afternoon and a slight northeasterly wind of maximum 15 kilometres an hour.
And there is the Eiffel Tower on the right shoulder now of the main field. All of the riders in this field are together today. There have been no particular pedals turned in anger, just a few small climbs in the Chevreuse Valley. And Miguel Indurain, in the last few minutes, has asked all of his team now to come to the front and to lead the Tour de France onto the Champs-Élysées. The riders almost queuing up here to go underneath the bridge, and very shortly we're going to see them come on to the Place de la Concorde, and then they're going to turn on the style.
I think when that moment comes, you know, the white flag of truce that has been out for most of this morning will come in, and the speed will go up quite dramatically, as everybody would like to get onto the Champs-Élysées in first place. When they hit the line, they'll have 8 laps of this circuit to do, which is something like 50 kilometres in total.
So a little chance to rejoin, and we're looking now at a man, Rolf Aldag, who could certainly win the sprint. He's had a flat tyre, he's having to race back onto the pack. He's in a little bit of a hurry there, because he needs to get on now, because the race is about to begin. It's been a gentle potter in the beautiful French sunshine today, but it won't be any more now as the riders race into the Champs-Élysées, and they line up then for the finish. In the distance you can see the Arc de Triomphe, as the field now settle in for 8 circuits. Jean-Marie Leblanc, the bottom right of our picture, the organiser. The telecom boys looking to see who is around in those pink jerseys, but it is the team who've nursed Miguel Indurain around 3,600 kilometres of France and Belgium, bringing him on to an enormous cheer. You see 8 laps to go now, but the yellow jersey and all of his team from Benesto, the only complete team left in the race, have now brought this race onto the Champs-Élysées. So after 3,600 kilometres in just on 3 weeks of racing, the riders in the Tour de France have now reached their targets. They're on the Champs-Élysées, and we'll take a break.
The Champs-Élysées is such a great setting for the last stage of the Tour. It's hard to imagine it ever finishing anywhere else. But in fact, the race has only been coming here for the last 20 years. Join us after the break.
Vauxhall's new 50/50 offer means you can have a whole new Vauxhall now and only pay half. But even better, the other half you pay 2 years later with no monthly repayments in between. And because there's no interest, the money you save should come in handy for a rainy day. The new 50/50 offer, developed by Vauxhall.
This is Runsil Quick Drying Wood Stain. You can't miss it. It comes in a tin with Runsil Quick Drying Wood Stain on it. It protects and it's rainproof in about 30 minutes, which means about 30.
When the peloton rolled down the Champs-Élysées in 1975, it was for the first time ever. Prior to that, the grand finale had been at the Velodrome in the Parc des Princes. And here's one for the Sports Trivia Quiz Night. The first man to win a stage on the Champs-Élysées was the Belgian rider, Walter Godefroot.
And Walter's actually out here today doing a few laps for old time's sake. Not under his own steam, mind. He's in the official team car of the Telecom team as manager of that squad, and no doubt hoping that Eric Zabel can get his 3rd stage win of the Tour today if it comes down to a bunch sprint. And this being the last show of the Tour, that's the final retro feature. Unless, of course, you count the next 3 minutes of more contemporary history.
Britain had high hopes for a good start in Saint-Brieuc, but the rain came down an hour into the prologue, and shortly afterwards so did Chris Boardman.
For 1 minute I was going at 80k an hour, and the next minute I wasn't. I'm not so sure it was me pushing too hard actually. That was my first thought. More the change in surface, and with the dimming light it was very difficult to see the where it was totally smooth tarmac and where it was grippy. And when you're pushing it to the limit, that makes a big difference.
Chris was out of the race with a broken ankle, and the Frenchman Jackie Durand was unexpectedly in yellow. Really though, the first week belonged to the Italians, who won 4 straight stages, 2 of them Cipollini Sprint Specials. An Italian ended up in yellow too. Unfortunately for Ivan Godi, no one seemed particularly interested. Fittingly, Eddie Merckx won the stage that took the Tour into Belgium. Merckx the bike maker, that is. Telecom's Eric Zabel, celebrating his birthday, did the pedalling and the podium dancing. After the transfer down to the Alps, Richard Virenque was winning the King of the Mountains competition on points, but the people's choice was Marco Pantani. Without the burden of hair, Pantani passed the rest of the field on the way to passing the classic climbers test, Alpe d'Huez. On the road to Saint-Etienne, Britain's Max Chiandri and Colombia's Hernan Buenahora shared the workload for 25 miles. But when it came down to the last 100 metres, Max wanted to be alone. The next day, the French fans got their first Bastille Day winner in 6 years, as Laurent Jalabert extended his lead in the green jersey competition. By stage 13, Chiandri was the only Briton left in the race, as Sean Yates abandoned his final tour on the way to Revel. 3 days later, news of a crash involving one of Sean's teammates came over race radio. First, seemingly no different from the dozens of other crashes that dot the race. But this one was. Fabio Casartelli lay still on the road with serious head injuries. On the way to hospital by helicopter, the Olympic champion survived 3 heart attacks, but doctors couldn't save him from his injuries.
He was a super kid, I'll tell you. When you think about somebody that was a champion and someone that had great character and someone that you were proud to be associated with, I think you were talking about Fabio Casartelli.
The following day, the peloton paid its respects. pack rode to Pau as one 119-man team, with the 6 remaining Motorola riders at the head. The first man across the line was Casartelli's roommate, Andrea Perron. 2 days later, Lance Armstrong paid a personal tribute, with a stage win in Limoges powered as much by emotional as physical strength. Yesterday, of course, the strongest man in the Tour asserted himself in his speciality, just to underline the distance between the leader and the chasing bunch.
So the bunch now racing across the Place de la Concorde. The leaders, with 3 laps to go, are here, coming up to the start-finish line. You know, this bunch has really got to do something special this time through. The main field are on the defensive here. A breakaway which established on the first of the 8 circuits of the Champs-Élysées is holding on to a lead of around about 25 seconds. The men in that breakaway are Sergei Uchikov, Flavio Manzella, Arturas Kasputis, Alvaro Mejia and Marco Serpellini.
Well, they're doing an excellent job. You know, the gap always increasing at the moment. That last time, though, they put a great turn of speed in, and I make it 23 seconds on the line, so it may well be that the time is starting to tumble at last.
There's Uchikov, knows what it's like to win a stage of the Tour de France this year. He did it for the first time ever in his career down at Revel, and conditions were almost, well, they were hotter, Paul, but I mean, today is superb in Paris, and he might win again here. Stevens racing down on the backside of the circuit now is Gilles Bouvard from the Chazal team. He won't help because he's got his man Kasputis up there in the lead. So he's trying now just to make Stevens do all of the work, and neither will Lance Armstrong in 3rd place nor Steve Bauer, because those riders are trying now to ease that breakaway away again. But having said that, from this picture now, you can see that the main field are beginning to close in. The gap is 19 seconds, and they're leaving themselves just about 2 1/4 laps to bring them back.
It's going to be very difficult, but the speed seems to have gone out of this group of 5 riders at the front. And in fact, I notice now they've just moved the yellow car, the neutral service car, forward of the group of 5. So it really means that the gap is starting to come down dramatically. You have to be able to keep the speed up all the time if you're going to stay away on the Champs-Élysées, because behind, the bunch never gives up.
But now the counterattacks are beginning to come from the Onso team. This is Eric Breukink who's now come up. In fact, they've all thrown the men to the fore now. Eric Breukink, Johan Bruneel, the rider who wore yellow just for a day. He lost it in the time trial in Belgium, but he won it in front of his own king when he raced into the finish to win the stage ahead of Miguel Indurain at Liège. But now he's the workhorse. Now they're getting down to business. Now they're giving Neil Stevens a hand, and I think they're going to bring that break back.
In fact, as we speak, I can see the man in the red jersey there, Laurent Bezeau, a former rider himself, making arm signals to get all the motorbikes out of there, to get all the photographers out of there, and it won't be too long before we see the yellow neutral service vehicle moving clear too. The Mapei team, they still want to help, because, you know, Johan Museo is an excellent sprinter. We have still, though, 4 riders from the Onse squad massing at the front, and I think they're really going to open up the gas. They've got 2 laps to do it, and that doesn't leave them an awful long time.
Well, they know they've got to finish it off in the next lap, because then they'll be into the bell lap, and then it's just about anybody's go. So the boys in pink, anxious now to get this race back together again, so they'll have a little bit of time to plan their strategy for the sprint.
Eric Breukink, one of the finest time trialists in the world in his day, really doing a great job now, and there it is, 19 seconds. It's slowly starting to come back down together. Onse are at the front, they're opening up the pedals, they're pushing down, getting everything they can out of this. They know that this next lap is going to be so important.
And here they come now, 2 laps to go in the Tour de France on the Champs-Élysées. The breakaway hangs on. 19 seconds clear for Uchikov, Manzella, Kasputis, Mejia and Serpellini. But the Onse boys, helped by Wilfred Peters of Mapei, have now got their men to the front, and they are flying. So the 5 men around the top beneath the Arc de Triomphe. 1.5 laps to go to the finish of the Tour de France. The gap is coming down. Miguel Indurain just watching from the stalls as the riders chase him down. He doesn't mind whether they get caught or not.
Miguel Indurain doesn't care at all about the stage victory today. His team have done an excellent job over these last 3 weeks to keep him at the top of the leaderboard in the yellow jersey. He's leaving today the Champs-Élysées stage as chicken feed to everybody else.
This is now Herminio Diaz-Zabala for Onse chasing. Wilfred Peters again is in the thick of it here. It's Once and Mappe now. Mappe working for Johan Museo, Once working well. Whoever can get it off the team. There's so many good ones, but the man they want to succeed wears a green jersey today, Laurent Jalabert.
You can almost see the panic now as they realise time is running out for them. There's 1.5 laps to go for these riders. The Mappe boys are up there with the Once riders. The clock actually going, I think, again in favour of the breakaway as they come past us here in the commentary position. I make it 24 seconds. So once again, those 5 riders at the front, they're stretching out that lead.
Almost since the moment we joined the circuit here, there was an attack, and it was Serpellini, I think, who put in the first attack. Quickly joined by the others, they went clear. And now, as they're coming round to the final circuit of the Champs-Élysées, they are still clear, and really by about the same as when they were on the first lap, because it's never really altered very much.
It has never altered very much more than 10 seconds. The maximum lead they had was 35 seconds, and since then it's hovered all around the 22 to 25 second mark. It really has been an incredible chase, but it may well be the sprinters judge it to perfection, because this last 6 kilometre lap of the Champs-Élysées could bring it all back together, especially if somebody in that leading group of 5 starts to play the tactical game and starts to miss the moves.
Here they are, the bell is ringing, 1 lap to go, the final lap of the Champs-Élysées. The Tour de France will come to an end in 6.5 kilometres time, and these men who broke away on the first lap of the Champs-Élysées are still clear by almost the same gap.
It's unbelievable. They're going to come by us in a fraction of a second. We'll get a chance for an unofficial time check. I make it 20 seconds on the line here, but in 6 kilometres time, Miguel Indurain is going to ride himself into history, because he will take his 5th consecutive victory in the Tour de France. But who is going to get the stage? Will it be one of the 5 men in the front, or will they come back?
It's beginning to look like it might. Eros Poli is launching an attack off the front. The speed of the main field, I cannot believe these 5 riders are surviving. They are doing a tremendous ride. It's still 20 seconds, and Eros Poli now tries to get some more life out of this race. And again, it's Once dragging the men back into the action. There is Jalabert himself now, realising that his big dream could be disappearing.
Jalabert would love to take the stage victory here, but in his wheel there is the man from Mappe, Johan Museo. He knows a good wheel to watch when it comes to the final sprint. And now the tactical part of this race, the 5 riders in the front starting to look at each other, starting to think, how can I win this race? We've been working together for 5 laps, for 6 laps we've been friends. Now we have to become enemies. We have to decide how we're going to win this race.
And as we go under the shadow of the Arc de Triomphe for the last time, the 5 leaders, Uchikov, Vanzella, Kasputis, Mechir, Serpellini, are just hanging on to the race lead. They've done it so well so far, and I think, you know, they might not have their day spoiled yet. Miguel Indurain is just keeping out of trouble in this big field. He's watching the final drama unfold as we watch an attack now by Laurent Brochard.
Brochard tries every time that he can to get away, but this is not the way to bring back the whole breakaway. You know, you have to work together. You need 4 or 5 men to try and chase down at the front. As Brochard looks under his shoulder, he knows that those 5 riders are starting to work together, but if they pause for just a fraction of a second, he may well get across. And it's not very far to go, about 2.5 kilometres for these leading group of 5 riders, and Phil, it's going to go right down to the line. This is what I expected to happen. They're starting to look at each other. 9 seconds is the gap now. It's going to be very close.
Somebody had to go. If they'd have stopped there, they'd have been eaten in about 200 metres, but they've gone now, and this time it looks to me as though Sergei Uchikov is the man who has attacked.
Alvaro Mejia tried to get across, but this is not his kind of race. It's not the kind of situation he likes to be in. He's a man for the mountains. Vanzella knows that. He's gone straight over the top to pull back Uchikov. This is going to be an incredible finish to this final stage of the Tour de France. Vanzella is now on the wheel of Sergei Uchikov. The 5 riders have come back together. If they start this kind of manoeuvring, you know, it's going to come all together in the last 200 metres, and we're going to have a tremendous sprint.
1.5 kilometres to go to the finish now, as the Mappe team still try to drag this main field back into the action. Uchikov has done 1 attack. They've marked him. The 5 men have rejoined together into the tunnel for the last time. Then we'll see the breakaway. Here they are coming out of the murk now. As Uchikov goes again, and Serpellini trying to grab him, followed by Kasputis, Mechir, Sandy. That's the order now as they go. Vanzella is last in the line, but this bunch is screaming across the Place de la Concorde. We've never had a finish like this in the Tour de France before. This has been a superb race. The sprinters are trying to get back in. There are the rabbits now. They're just holding it off here. But I think, you know, they're sitting up for some reason. Vanzella's looking across. They're really making a big mistake. They'll let them back in if they do this.
And Alvaro Mejia has decided now's the time to go. He hasn't got a chance at all if it comes down to the sprint. He's decided to give it everything he's got over these last few hundred metres. They're chasing him down. If the sprint has timed it to perfection, or are they going to lose it in the last few hundred metres?
Across the Place de la Concorde, then at about 400 metres from the line now, but look at the speed of the pack. They are coming so quickly here now as the escapers go under our camera. Then the pack comes under, looking to lead out Giovanni Lombardi. He's the rider in second place now. They're coming right on as Lombardi takes a dive across the gap too. Mejia looks over his shoulder. Don't do that because the Polti boys are coming. Jalabert on the far right. This is going to be an incredible finish as Giovanni Lombardi tries to get his first stage win in the Tour de France. Abdou Jafarov is coming on the right along with Laurent Jalabert. Abdou Jafarov gets it. Can you believe that? And what an end to the Tour de France. As further down the field, the man that we all salute is Miguel Indurain, that great man who has won the Tour de France for a record 5 years now. What a superb victory by Abdou Jafarov. There he is in the white. He dives into open space this time. This man has got happy and sad memories of the Champs-Élysées. He crashed here heavily a couple of years ago. Now he's won second time here, a victory on the Champs-Élysées. This will be the sweetest moment for him, and what a great finish indeed. Just look at his face here. How much further to go, he keeps saying, and then he says, that'll do me. So, at last perfection for Jamaluddin Abdou Jafarov, who wins again in Paris. This time he finishes in front of Fagnini, Giovanni Lombardi, Laurent Jalabert. Britain's Max Chiandri was fifth. Eric Zabel, 2 stage wins this year, had to be content with 6th on this occasion. Well, the Tashkent Terror today mounts the podium for the very first time, but he's chosen the right city in which to win. He's by no means finished yet. Overall, there was no change. We didn't expect any. Miguel Indurain having a peaceful ride today to win his 5th Tour in a row. He now goes into the record books as the only man to win 5 Tours de France in 5 years. He again demonstrated to us he has no equal yet. He beat Alex Zula by more than 4 minutes. Bjorn Ries was 3rd, Laurent Jalabert 4th, Ivan Gotti 5th, and Melchior Mauri was 6th. Indurain as composed and relaxed as ever as he's flanked by Alex Zula and Bjorn Ries on the podium today. The other 2 newcomers to the top 3. They could well be there again in the future. And congratulations due too to our competition winner. He is Robert Clark from Haywards Heath in Sussex. Robert, you have won the 3 winners' jerseys, and they will be on the way to you shortly. Well done. Well, that brings to an end our coverage of the 82nd Tour de France, but it's not the end of cycling on Channel 4. In 2 weeks' time, on August the 6th, we'll bring you the highlights of the World Cup event, the Leeds Classic. The men from the Tour de France will be competing in our country. I hope you enjoyed our coverage of the Tour. We certainly enjoyed bringing these programmes to you. On behalf of Gary Imlach and Paul Sherwin, I'm Phil Liggett saying goodbye.